on it.
Very a lot better.
Really? We're gonna have, we got farmers, she's shaking her head saying, we got no rain, these plants are still going. Yes.
Now look at this, so, hanging in there too, they're getting dry. So it's still starting to get dry.
Well, you will, and the thing about the mycorrhizal fungi, as you, it can get into so many parts of the soil that roots can't. It's 100th the size of the root. So obviously the cracks and crevices that get a compacted soil, which is a star, the cracks and crevices are very accessible to the mycorrhizal and not to the root system. So you get that, those are the last little pockets of water sitting down in there, okay? So you just, and of course, the mycorrhizal's job is to hide that nutrient in the plant that the plant can't get in exchange for sugars from photosynthesis. So it really is kind of a cool thing to see it put into extremes. When you have no water, the plants keep going week after week after week, and they, when the stuff may not feel much of a head, plants have nice heads and they're still feeling it. Is that right? That's I'll never plan another secret out. And it's so easily justifiable on dry land. A lot of the products are so expensive on dry farm, on dry land, you can't keep the price in the budget. They can't use buy or release.
What do you notice on either side?
It's too expensive.
You can, so doing this is sort of dry run.
Oh, fire up, John.
Corn, I had put more to that answer. This was put in like 3 by 3.
Yeah.
What the difference is, wire leaf, even.
So we're in gonna take this little section.
You're all the way That's one of the things we're seeing out here.
Okay, are you gonna shoot off this side, or are you gonna shoot off that side? You're gonna shoot off this side?
Saying that everybody comes,
This is for questions.
This is for questions, if you have questions.
Okay.
and so we work around extremely wet. And now it's really showing up big time.
You got the way
We get, this is some of the most uneven fields we've seen in probably 15 years. For just, you know.
Corn on corn is really showing up.
Yo, terribly. There's fields that are tossing off, and I know 2 weeks down the road, in that same field, they're still doing bush toss. Is even Christians.
Are you gonna take that off the screen, or?
There's so much unevenness up there. There's all sizes of corn. Corn is still yellow, just for compaction.
And there was corn, normally our standard's always been knee-high by the 4th of July. There was a lot of corn that was not knee-high by the 4th. And to tell you how bad some of it looks, like over by St. Cloud or east, if they get silage, and that's if they don't freeze before October 1st or 4th, our area is 4th of October, first frost on average. If they don't freeze until then, they'll barely make silage. That's how bad, how far behind stuff is.
Well, this is, you know, every year is different, but what the key to really managing these soils is you put a brush and stuff around the year. The weather's never the same. It seems that we end up with different issues year after year after year. And so it's not like we know what to do for next year. But the beautiful thing about nature is what she shows you screams so loudly in your vision, you can't hear what she's saying. There's all of these indicators of unevenness. Okay? What's the killing? What's the compaction telling? What's the plant telling? The farmer looks at it and goes, Jim and I were with this morning. And they said, it's uneven, it's terrible, you know. And it's not a reflection on whether our nutrient programs work or whether our biology works. It's a reflection on 40 years worth of soil management. It's a reflection upon the biological status of their soil profile.
Did you guys have a penetrometer?
No,
Because we've been taking some tests.
it's a draw hard.
Well, the lightest soil, the softest was 300 pounds, and there was guys up as high as 500. Well, super hard packed stuff is 300. And here's some of that stuff that's going to run up as high as 500. There's no way roots are going to go through that.
A root can't go through anything above 30.
Yeah, basically.
And, you know, you look at this, and of course the farmer wants to tell you it's a utility problem or it's your product problem. And products in biology all have their limitations when you or the potential. And so you look at this, and you know, and I think this is a great topic Jim has chosen this year, because really when you look at it, you look at this dynamic plant, soil mineral, soil biology triangle. The biology is the driving factor of this. If you're going to do anything quality and substance, biology is the key. You know, we all are trained to think in pK because that's what the universities propose, that's what the chemical companies pay for, and of course that creates a domino effect of chemical rescue compounds that are needed in the process of growing the plant. So it's a very lucrative business for those promoting it. It's a endless struggle for the farmer to add the costs, add the frustrations, and make a profit on a less valuable commodity. And so at some point in time, the pinch will come together, whether it's just not the demand or the margin. And so things have to change. I mean, we really had a 50, 60-year run on the abuse system, where you dump, you front end load, you cram the jam, and your soils are now saying the buffer's not there anymore, not with the structure of the organic matter, certainly not with the mineral content, and absolutely not the biological profile. So, you know, some wicked person's vision of this was genetic modification. Well, then there now must be something wrong with the plant that's been defined for 6,000 years.
Okay, we're missing Karen. She had to run home and get something to eat. This will be the group for the training today. We're going to video everything. We got our video master back there. You're a shitnologist. He's a videologist, okay? And but I think everybody's met John, and I want to thank John for all the work he's done this far being here. With the website has really been upgraded, and we're getting a lot of really good compliments on it. The social media, we actually started our own online recruiting site to recruit people, and then along with the video, we've got a new video room with new video equipment, and he's actually going to be able to stream the conference live to anybody that wants to be online. So we've made a lot of progress in the short time he's been here. The other person that some of you haven't met is Karen Seibert, and this is like her think your third day here or second day here. And Karen comes with a lot of experience in some salesmanship. She was really heavy in junior achievement. But since then, she's had a lot of jobs where she's been involved with agriculture at the state level. And I think she can really help us. So what we're evaluating over the next 3 months is admin support and outreach marketing. So as an example, John went online and got all of the beef producers that have manure management plans with Minnesota, Iowa, and South Dakota. So we have a complete list. And the idea is when Karen feels comfortable, is then have her start cold calling or emailing or sending out or what, a combination of them, and trying to identify everybody with beef pits and see if we can interest them in treatment, as an example. That's one little niche market that we could zero in on. And so as you guys get ready to video the beef pit that you got, and if he goes up there, we might even want to have Karen come up. I just started a pit out here south of Austin that was started last year, but really wasn't handled right, so I went out this week and I personally treated it. They bought a whole tote of silage forage enhancer, and I took them Microbial Healthy Plus. They're going to start, when they start their new group of cattle, they've got a barn that has 125 4 pens, so they put 500 in at a time, and we're going to take 1 pen and get them 2 ounces of the Microbial Healthy Plus per head per day. And then they want us to work on them on their complete crop program. That's the voice. You were out there.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
So we got some things happening, and you know, we just all got to be patient, and we'll find some more people to help with the sales part of it. But we're going to be very cautious, and before we bring anybody into the company, we want to make sure it's a good fit for everybody. So that's kind of what we've got going on there. Now, appreciate Ken being here. I think everybody knows Joe Phillips with the cattle water technology. We've had an opportunity, all of us, to work with that over the years, and we've seen some very, very encouraging results. Again, in the field, I've seen some very encouraging things, and I think it fits in with everything that we focus on, which is the microbes first, as Ken said, leading us to proper mineral nutrition and balance. So we want Joe to be active in our program today and interact with us. Now, I'm going to leave it up to you guys where you want to kind of take. What I figured we could do is run until 5 o'clock or so, or when we get tired, and then take a break and go have something to eat together, if you'd like. Tomorrow, we'll start at 9:30 in the morning. Is it 9 or 9:30? 9:30, isn't it? 9?
8:30 to 9 is registration, and then 9 o'clock.
It's 9 o'clock till noon, 3 hours. We're going to handle animal and manure. And then from 1 o'clock until 5, we're going to be crop and soil. And Ken will handle both those morning and afternoon sessions. And then tomorrow evening, we have Dr. Richard Mayfield that'll be here from the cities, who Fran and I have gotten to know. That's going to talk about how your gut health and the microflora in your gut is tied to your health in your entire body. So I think people will find that very interesting. Then the next Friday, what we're going to do
Did
is
you
come.
tell me how bad this is killing you?
Yeah, he'll tell you.
Can't do that too.
And then we'll come back Friday, and you guys all know what we're going to do. For an hour and a half, we're going to lay out the program for next year.
What?
Yeah.
I didn't know anything about this.
Your PowerPoint presentation,
Yeah.
this is over there. You get a copy before you go to bed.
You know what we're talking about, Dennis. We're going to talk about
Yeah, but I didn't know we were doing next Friday.
This Friday.
this Friday.
This Friday morning.
Friday morning.
Oh, okay. I thought you meant.
No. Then we're going to, at about 9 or so, we're going to get on a bus and we're going to go out and look at talk to a Rich Till farmer and a cover crop deal, and it's been rich tilling and doing cover crops for quite a while, and then they just overseeded the cover crops and urea and corn, and we've had no rain, so what do you think's happening?
It's not growing.
Nothing. And then we're gonna go look at another site where they planted 6 different cover crops last year and then planted the same corn variety over. I'm kind of disappointed in what they show because we haven't had any rain for a while, but I think it'll get us out and get us interacting.
Does that affect your crop insurance coverage? I kind of heard that you can't intercede until after.
Yeah, yes, it does have an impact on your insurance. So you need to check with your insurance agent, or they are, as they get educated, they are going to change. But it's a matter of we're educating them. Right now in Freeborn County, we started the Freeborn County Soil Health and Water Quality Initiative team. And we got all the state agencies, NRCS, et cetera. And then we're trying to gather up all the ag businesses in the county to be on it. And the whole thing is, how can we improve soil quality in Freeborn County and the watershed? And we've been at it for about 8 months, and we're making some progress. So,
We didn't screw these soils up overnight, so
No.
we're not gonna fix them overnight.
in fact, one of the guys, it's Miles, who's on the team, that will be speaking now at the field day.
Okay.
And he's going to do a slag test and some other things. So I went out and collected samples because they need clods of soil. So I'm collecting, and it's got to be air dried. So I'm collecting samples. Yeah. And I know, I went to my neighbors, I know both of them use anhydrous, and man, I couldn't even get the data fork in the ground.
You can't get time.
So I got some of that. So today, how do you want to go about it? Do you want to identify some areas you want Ken to go over, or do you want to just willy-nilly ask questions? What I said, maybe an update on soil chemistry, plant nutrition, definitely new product technology, what we're seeing in the field this year, highlight full products and programs a little bit. I'm interested, and then I want to talk a little bit, to make sure that our pricing is right in how we're, if we want to promote these products here. So what's the timeline? What do we need to be doing if we got our pricing right? So we need to talk about that. The other thing, Ken, that I would like to learn more, I see more and more every day an opportunity for dry pack manure, for composting, and litter. And we really, as a group, haven't done a whole lot in that area, but I see that as an opportunity.
Well, here's a good example. My neighbor's got 4 10,000 head took the rights, 2 river rights. I know he's got cellulitis. I just gotta get over there and talk with him about trying to make a little bit off the bus on that kind of stuff. But I know that we had something that I passed that would help. I'm tired of them finding their damn person in the place we smell.
Well,
And then the other thing,
you go with the continued aerobic composting. You either do aerobic or you do that.
and then Joe, if you got any interjections, feel free to do it, or maybe sometime we'll have, maybe you talk a little bit and bring us up to speed on what you're doing. Here's, Joe, a little bit. All of these guys have had experience with cattle water, one way or another. In the water, in the manure, in the crop side. Doug's put quite a bit out with his manure. We've got customers who got it out. Dennis says Millerdale's been on it for what, 3-4 years now, 3 years at least. And we're seeing fantastic results out there, aren't we? Now this year we expanded it into some of Ken's stuff with the nutritional part of it. And you were out there the other day and you said it looks really good, doesn't it?
Millerdale.
Millardale, yeah. Now, here, I'm going to throw this out before I forget it, because I want us to talk about it, is we're trying to figure out how to get the colonies this coming year. How can we get to the colonies? So with Millardale showing Dennis was out there, the crops look good, the soil is starting to recondition, and we're getting better soil health. If Millerdale will let us come in, either
I don't know if that's gonna happen.
really,
Robert didn't sound too enthused about it.
really.
It's too much work. I said, talk to Mike.
What if we took the work off his shoulders where we came out and put a tent up outside and had meals brought in? Would they let us use the site to do it if they weren't tied up in it?
Possible.
If we went out and just did like a field show, just took an area,
Rip Pit Day.
you know, where we put up a tent and we brought the tables and chairs and we brought the meal in, they don't have to be involved. All we want to do is look at the manure and look at the field and dig some rip pits.
Possible. I don't know. Talk to him.
But we're looking to, my idea was, since the things are looking good out there, is that we would get out there the first 2 weeks of September and from 10 to 3 in the afternoon and bring as many colonies as we can get in there.
Well, here's another thought process too, if they don't want to do it, or if they are not continue to having us bring people out there, what's wrong with you, me, John, Karen, set up a day, go out there, we do videos.
Yeah,
And
and we could. We could do
And
that.
then we put it on DVD, and we do it in the colony. Here's what your colony out in Miller is doing, set out and show them the video, and we go from there.
That's the second option, but the best option is to get them
Well, I
down
know
to
that's
another
the best
colony.
option.
Now, another thing though.
But we'll take, you gotta take the workload off of them.
Yeah, well, Robert also said, I don't know if the colonies will come clear out here. You know, the people will come to watch. He said, you need to have it in the eastern part of South Dakota, like in Danny's place, is what he said.
Do
But
we
he
have,
doesn't have anything with manure, so, I mean, we're not treating the manure.
well, there we could do the video and use that at a field day like that,
Right.
maybe some way.
Even a Rip Pit
I
Day is
just thought of
huge.
it this morning,
Yeah.
so I
Because
guess,
when I was up at the Sauk Center there at the Millers,
yeah.
that was my first experience with a Rip Pit Day, and it was massive. That was huge for me. Because that's, you know, it's whatever we see.
Well, that's something that I would like to get done if we can. So I think with Millerdale, what you gotta do is just say, we'll take the load off you. All we need is for you to give us access to the site. And we'll bring and put up a tent and we'll do the meal and we just wanna look at the manure. Is Robert afraid of the highlight or limelight or what?
Can't tell. Sounded like he didn't really want to be in the video either. I just don't feel comfortable doing that, he said.
They tend to all be that way though.
Yeah, that's
Shy.
Except for Jerry.
Jerry was all over her like once, he just loves that.
Okay.
If you took them some home brew, Jim, and sat down for an hour, I'm sure they'd all agree to it after that.
You and I may have to get in the car and go out there.
And Danny, I was leaving town last week, and I was heading back home, and Danny calls me up, I need some more cough syrup. You know what cough syrup is?
That sounds
And
like
I
Danny
think we
too.
need to go check out the nervous again, he said.
Joe, did you want to say something?
Do they make all their own home brew?
They make their own wine, and the wine is so good.
Okay.
Okay, it's-
Remember, we do wineries that give you the university report. They increase the alcohol by 30% by adding, in the fermentation process, they
Yeah.
just add a little bit of 80 and it brought the alcohol up by 30%, kept the yeast alive.
See, Millerdale with that, I mean, they use cattle water and everything, they can just throw a little bit in there.
But when you give them 80, you say, here's one that's made.
Oh, that's not
just,
easy, that'd be 40, wouldn't it?
You know, we'll
For the
give you,
field, right?
we'll give you some 80 and you tell them, add this into one fermentation, look at the alcohol control.
Maybe a place to start, Ken, would be bring us up to speed on some of the new stuff. And then you guys, what order, what do you want to do, guys? Okay.
Just, I don't throw any questions.
I don't think I haven't yet.
Oh,
You haven't?
No.
Joe Phillips, Ken Hamilton.
nice to meet you. Joe is out of Flint Plain.
Oh, that's true.
And then they got their processing facility at Amarillo.
Is that Frito-Lay country?
Yeah, and that street. Not so, it's like,
Uh,
big time Frito.
The,
And Ken is out there in Idaho,
Utah.
Utah, Idaho, same territory basically.
Ken is out in Logan, and he covers a lot of area, but they do a lot of work up in, the Idaho, Utah, Montana. But he also
Washington too.
comes out into the Midwest.
not so much over there.
You don't get into that Walla area.
And then he has,
It's 110 bushel an acre all the time.
company,
I travel.
Ag Tech.
So why do they do such wagons out there? Is it because of climate?
This has
A little bit, 6 weeks earlier in the spring, told him.
but they have
Good, see, a lot of what they do is
geological
geological.
good soil.
You'll understand.
Never soil.
Yeah, he will understand.
Just traveling through, it's like, man. it's-
Very, very blessed soil.
Okay, questions on map adapt, how it breaks down, why it ties, I know why it ties up, because it forms into, what's the word I want? There you go. So then the calcium and magnesium bind to it and tie it up. Now, is that completely tied up forever? Or can it be broken down again? Is it available second year?
A little bit.
Because I hear this all the time, well, Holy Jefferson's available for the year, but then you get it the next year.
No,
I don't know.
no, that's
That's Alice.
the situation, your map and gap reactivity are different. If you take your map, you have a much lower pH on that product. So just by sheer physics and soil chemistry, you're going to have a reactiveness that is way more aggressive. And of course, its companion, the mineral, is the calcium. And once that locks up, it goes into hypotate. Phosphate, it doesn't come back. The only one that's going to access it from that point is biology. Because it becomes so insoluble. Your bones are made of that, your teeth are made of that. Tell me how soluble they are.
Hopefully not.
Well, and so you look at those chemical changes. The problem with your fertilizers are nature does a wonderful job of balancing minerals when they put them together. And so when you use a natural ore, it has a release cycle or a breakdown cycle. When we pull it out of the deposit, redistribute it, then we have a really kind of planned, predictable breakdown of that. When you take a product, because there's a balance to it, right? It's got a lot of everything. When you refine things, you disrupt the balance. Because what you're doing is all of your phosphate products, whether liquid or dry, start from a soft rock or a hard rock form. Well, they throw all the trace minerals away, they throw the calcium out, and they start with phosphate. They add ammonium, and there's no equilibrium to it. It's going to react. Once it reacts, those secondary bonds are pretty tight. And the aggressiveness of that bond depends upon the pH. Well, that is more neutral, more in the 6 range. So it doesn't have that aggressive bonding. But you gotta remember, what am I dealing with, right? One is, I got ammonia. So it's not gonna hang around long anyway. So with the phosphate side of it, I have a very aggressive rebond with orthophosphate P2O5, which is what your 1152 is. And your DAP, which is a diammonium phosphate, it isn't going to bond as hard, but you still have to remember, I still have a triple negative balance on that molecule, and it's aggressive. And so, what do I have out there that has the strength to withdraw that from the right bond? Plants don't usually do well with this. And so, the whole concept here is natural fertility is, I would say, organic, if you will, natural occurring minerals, okay? They're in liquid form to release and be stable than our refined, highly unstable products. And so, in their management tools, sometimes you have seen in our crop nutrient calculators where I have several weeks of an extremely high uptake of a certain nutrient. In that case, instead of trying to raise the soil, the whole soil profile to that level for the entire year, you use a liquid that you can put out and manage a spike, okay, but have basic fertility that's affordable the rest of the time, okay? So, and soluble. And, you know, Dr. William Albrecht really had the concept correct. Is nutrients need to be insoluble, but available. Now, it doesn't sound like a common sense thing, but it really is. When all of your nutrients are in a soluble solution, the first rainstorm, they're gone. We always get a lot of that out here. If it all came a half inch at a time, it would be a perfect world. Because then we'd never lose that much of that root system. But you get 2s, 4s, 6, and 8 inches of rain. And you flush. So that which you apply in the soluble form quickly becomes part of the Gulf of Mexico. And so these products have a place, but it's how we manage them that's probably more crucial than whether this is good or that is bad. Sometimes you need a short-term, highly soluble product. A lot of times you need a long-term stable product. And so it depends upon what problem you're trying to solve, what part of the management system. So one thing that I try to look at is not get caught into, I'm GMO, I'm conventional, I'm no-till, I'm organic. Those are all labels. They're theologies, if you will, agricultural theologies that say, okay, this is the club I belong to, and that's how I identify myself. Those do very little to address soil problems, soil chemistry, biology, and plant physiology. It seems like the religion is more important than the substance. And so we don't look at solving problems with labels, we look at solving problems with management. So if you don't understand the biological, the physiological, and the chemistry part of things, all you can do is sell theory. And there's plenty of people that will buy into it. So rather than, I guess, let's look at what solves problems and helps us manage rather than is something good or bad, because nothing is always all good, nothing is always all bad. I mean, even pathogens that we think, oh, goodness gracious, if we could just get rid of the pathogens, one might be wonderful. No, we would all die. They have a place. Their role, even though very minor in population, is the crucial side of balance. And so you can't have the good without the bad. You just have to go through the management systems of keeping the good in the greater proportion and the bad where it needs to be maintained, because it's part of the balance, okay? And God won't let us remove it. It's not part of what happens here. So.
I wish you would remove mosquitoes.
But then the swallows would be hungry.
Yeah, and the bats and the dragonflies.
And then all of a sudden, your favorite thing would disappear when you're old and gray. So, I mean, what we don't understand, we tend to put in a box and label bad. I'm sure if you spent 3 years studying mosquitoes, you would be grateful for them in their proper population ratio. You know, why do we have all these imbalances? Why do we have the problems? What did we do to kill the predators?
Because now we're losing our moose. They're giving up their babies. Have you heard that? In Minnesota, they're abandoning their young.
Who is?
The mother mooses are abandoning their calves. And the university, the zoo now, they've got 6 of them, and they just abandoned them. And nobody has a clue why this is happening, but it all boils down to what you said. We're creating some major imbalance, and it's happening in Minnesota. It's not happening in Canada or Alaska, but here in Minnesota, that's what's going on. We've just been screwing stuff up.
Would you say, really, what we really need to focus on to help in the plan, we look at the soil biology, organic matter, that's our starting point. Because it's really the biology we need to get focused, but yes, we also have to worry about the nutrients and all those other things, but that's based on the baseline.
Well, you have 2 factors. Is you can't, it was never meant to be a pure biological system, nor was it ever meant to be a pure mineral system, pure chemistry system. And so it's a balance of both. But when you get both right, you eliminate a multitude of other problems. And so foundationally, fundamentally, it's where you start. Now, we're a little bit more in tune to soil chemistry because that's what everybody talks out here. There's virtually no one that understands soil biology. And no one wants to teach it because one is no one has it, no one wants to handle it. And the second one is if they did, you would have a far less need for their products.
Mm-hmm.
So how about bringing in a product that takes out a lot of my profitability? So as a distributor of fertilizer or secondary chemicals to support high toxic fertility, there goes your cash flow. So it's a tool that if we're going to do things the right way, you're going to have to go back to.
I think the other main thing too, that I've come to realize more and more in the last 2 or 3 years is these microbes are just dominant in every form of phase of life. And the other aspect is they need nutrition just like anything else. And so when you put the nutrition there, then that really kicks it into performance.
What we really have is our fields that, and I don't believe anything just happens by chance. I believe these chemical companies are very bright. I think they have some very well organized business plans, and I don't believe a lot gets by them. But when you have what you have invested into them, and they have kind of set their rut, they're not going a different direction. And so their purpose, and you can plan on this, is to perpetuate what you already have. It's been a very profitable rut for them for half a decade or more. And in their mind, they'll take it until the rut goes over the cliff. They are not going to turn.
Some of the companies are investing now in biologicals, and they are, you pick up the Iowa Farmer today, the last issue, they had 4 articles there in cover crops and biology. So, I mean,
Is the reason that is because I couldn't make it commercially available to have a product that does the biology, that covers microbes? In other words, have you seen, like an organic farmer, they don't put commercial fertilizer, do they?
No, their protocol is a list of approved items.
Right.
Now, does it provide a full nutrient blend? No, it does not.
I know this is not, because you're working with bacteria. bacteria in the soil. Have you seen where if you have enough bacteria, where you build it up, the elements go down? Have you ever done any soil samples, seen elements change?
Or do they just get redispersed into other?
What he's talking about there, Ken, I think is biotransmutation or transformation, where, I believe in my heart, through many years of observation, that we only understand not even 10% of what goes on. But how does nature keep things balanced? That's the question.
What we've done, just so that we get right down to it, is that we just work with the bacteria, with my kids. And all the soil samples, like magnesium was 700, goes down to 200. What was low comes up. That the soil balances, very almost immediate short time. Organic farmers will get that and have it happen, but it takes years for them to build up, and then the soil will balance. So what we see is what was high comes down and what was low comes up. And what they said is that you could do it in a controlled environment, so they say it doesn't happen. And what I'll show you guys, what we've done now is we're able to show that does happen in the soil.
Well, I'd like to see that, because that is the role of biology and weeds and all of nature's tools over time, is to redistribute and rebalance minerals. And do I believe that you can put out a group of biology today and fix the soil tomorrow? No, I don't.
What we do is all the tests so far now give the soil's not microbial yet. But I was waiting to show, this is good that we can just do it right here. Biotransformation, we finally found out really does that. We've seen it happen in the soil, but they say, oh, you took it from the wrong place, or it happens. But if you take dirt where our product is made, any dirt, run all over the silicon, and you melt it, and you heat it up, you leave it overnight. Out of 2 ounces of dirt, you get 1 ounce of this. And
So what is this?
What is that?
it shows that it's copper. It's copper. It's zinc. It's got titanium, and there's trace minerals will be in it, like that sulfur or something that's in the dirt. But now, if you take bottom ash out of the plant, right where Ken water's made, and it'll turn into that. Otherwise, you turn into this. I mean, so what we're doing now is we've been able to show that biotransformation does happen. The university's scared with it because they said they got scared off with cold fusion. But we see that the bacteria, when you bacteria, if you put it in concentrations and balance the soil with it, we see that elements go down and other elements come up. We see it on XRF. We come and treat it, sulfur will go down and silver will go up. So now I just got a new article showing that bacteria are showing tape, and then showed you on the way out here. They're showing that bacteria take electrons. So that I think that finally the technology is catching up. I mean, I think they call it, alchemy before, but I think all alchemy has been using bacteria to make things happen. And 5 years ago, stuff that we're seeing now, nobody would accept it, but now we got enough. Universities don't. The professors are hard. They're trying to, they don't understand it. It's not written in the books. It doesn't happen.
Well,
So,
I understand what you're saying, and, you know, when most alchemy is, whether you're talking about precious metals, a lot of work has been done in that field of trying to take, okay, I don't believe there are too many functional bacteria at 2100 degrees, Joe.
What happens is. that
You have a molecular exchange,
what we-
electron exchange.
Takes, and this is something else, and all this stuff, we don't understand, I mean, we're learning, right? I don't think anybody, in 50 years will understand it, but we're getting there. But, you have to leave, like we take the dirt and leave it where the product's made, you have to leave it overnight. Then you melt it, it works, you continue to do it right then. So,
Well, it certainly poses some interesting things to look into. I know how nature works. Now, what we're trying to do, and everything that we do, is aid nature. Because nature is very patient and we're not. So when we grow corn where prairies used to be, we're trying to set that climate for a different plant, and we're trying to do intensive agriculture where nature would never do this. And so we're trying to accelerate what nature does over time. And that's farming, and so there are methods to go about it. I'm not going to say what you're doing and going about doing is not happening. I'm not aware of how you do it or how it goes about. It could very well be, just as you say. The thing is our farmers have to start somewhere, and we have to manage mass soils to bring about certain things. And you can't shortcut a natural process. I will never fix all my problems with inorganic components. I don't know that I can ever fix all of my problems with only biology. You've got to have these physical parties together doing what they do. It's kind of how things work. How we accelerate that, I guess it's open to anybody's creativity. And so on a mass scale, how do we help these farmers? Because to start with, we don't have any good soils. We don't have any healthy plants. And unfortunately, we don't have any healthy people. What we have are half-healthy people with no symptoms, and the rest of them are damn sick people with a lot of symptoms. And so we don't have things in balance anywhere. And so, there's so much repair work to do. But you have to start on the right foot. You have to use basic fundamental principles to start with. And then the winner is the guy who can accelerate it, and how you do it. Right now, are there more methods than what we use? Absolutely. There's some companies out there that have stuff we don't. And by all means, use it. Okay, if it works, there's a lot of brilliant people that aren't all on some big company's payroll or politically aligned to where they're working against this stuff.
Or have an agenda, yeah.
So,
wouldn't you say though, the biggest thing is, we've got some very good products. There's other products out there. Some of them might work better here, some of them might work better there. But it all goes back to the soil.
well, fundamentally, you look at this. I mean, everybody says, will this product work? Will this product work? It's like pharmaceuticals. One guy does really well on this particular drug, and another one goes, I'm going to die in 3 days if I don't get off of it. Okay? There's no environment that's all the same. I wish that, and this is the problem with pharmaceuticals. That's why we kill 100,000+ people a year with prescription drugs. Is because everybody's got a different terrain inside. Everybody's got a different physiology. And yet the one drug is designed to force one biological reaction. Well, there's a lot of variables out there. So it isn't product oriented. It isn't a silver bullet. It is a management system. And if you don't start with soil and biology, the rest of it is like rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic, in my opinion. All you're doing is selling one more product to put one more Band-Aid on one more sinking ship. Okay, you know, I've said this over and over and over again. If herbicides, insecticides, and fungicides were the answer, we'd have solved this problem 40 years ago. But what we keep doing is we use more and more and more. Our food gets worse, our products get more toxic, our yields aren't getting better, but somebody's pocketbook is getting bigger and bigger. And so that's the trend of agriculture because it was simplified. We sat with a guy this morning and he said, we finally quit ridge tilling and we finally went to glyphosate because it simplified the problem. It made it simple. Well,
Now he's getting up.
for a time. But Jim and I were in the field this morning and Jim goes, oh my, water him. Well, I've already sprayed it and it only looks like you made it mad.
Did
Okay.
he use Herbalife?
No.
See, that was his downfall.
But the problem is, I will tell you, is Herbalife may help for a few more years. You may extend the efficiency of a toxin. But is Herbalife the long-term solution?
No.
It's just a bigger Band-Aid. Okay? What is the solution is my soil biology and my soil chemistry. Okay? That is fundamentally the root cause of this stuff. It isn't that I don't have a strong enough fungicide or a strong enough pesticide that I'm applying, because nature says this weed has a place. I need it to do a certain function in this imbalanced soil. And if you think you're going to beat me, God is not an architect I want to take on.
You will never win working against nature. Well, that's the poster up there.
For some reason. So these are principles that if we keep in mind and we try to approach the root of the problem rather than selling one more Band-Aid. Now, are there times we need a Band-Aid? Yeah. You know, we've got a major problem. We've got a fungus that's come in. We don't have a plant protected. We better stop it or we're going to lose the plant. But it's a warning. Why is it there in the first place? Why does it have soil minerals are wrong, soil biology is wrong, plant biology is wrong. I don't have the right biology on the plant leaf, right? Now, these are basics. If you get those right, you won't have the disease. So, again, are we in the business of selling Band-Aids or are we in the business of selling solutions? And that's where you need to be different, because the Band-Aid train will eventually come to a stop because there won't be anything that outlives it. Given long enough, you won't have functional societies, you won't have quality food production, you won't have healthy people, you won't have production going on, because we don't function off of toxicity, right? You look at the escalation in disease rate in this country, it's astronomical. But you look at the alterations in our food and the chemicals, and all they are is a very clever device to extract money into a very big industry. If you tell a lie long enough people believe it. Do you need genetically engineering? No, you don't. You need nutrition. Well, nutrition's competitive. If I go into genetically engineering, it's not competitive. Not when they started. You can get monopolies pretty easy on that stuff. Hell, you can't patent 1152. You can't patent potash. You can't patent calcium, but you can patent a gene. You can patent a gene sequence. You can patent all of this nonsense. So now you've got a protective monopoly. And so, you know, it's only about the money, guys. Don't think they have a damn bit of interest in your well-being or your prosperity or anything like that. It's nothing more about money, power, and greed. And that's the direction that industry has been grown from, and it's the direction that will continue to go until people finally take them out and burn them to the stake.
Now, Ken, we know that the way this whole thing was set up from the creator and to evolution or whatever, through the process of building, you know, living off the strength of whatever over time. I think, do you feel that in a perfect world, the system would be, we know in a forest it can be self-sustaining.
It's designed to be that way.
In a cropping situation like we have in the Midwest, could we ever get to the point where it's self-sustaining? And I think this is where Joe is coming from a little bit with his technology is that what he feels the cattle water technology does, it gives you an opportunity to be more self-sustaining and you don't need all this input. So where do we cross over between having enough mineral there and the right kind of mineral and the biology, and can that naturally be balanced? And I think that's a little bit what Joe is trying to say, that he feels his technology will do. So, you know,
I better say something. We call it cattle water technology. What is cattle water technology? You probably have 10 products that is cattle water technology. Just we have more concentrated, you know, it's just using bacteria, microbes in solution that covers the ground. You know, just puts it back, what, you know, what Roundup is doing and other things, it just puts the soil back to what nature, you know, made it. So to me, we call it cattle water technology. But it's better than just saying using bacteria. You know, there's, like you said, there's, I don't know how many products out there, you know, they all do a little bit, you know, they all cost money, some, you know, it's just, we've developed a process to be able to get it down to where it's economically available to put it down. We can make, you know, we don't have a problem with production, but it's not, but there's other products out there. I've never, you know, I just said, it's just having one that's, that you don't have a big corporation that has it, you know, we knocked out everybody and we don't keep it down, but it's using bacteria in the soil, you know, and sometimes, like you said, everything I've heard here, you know, I was trying to sell Jim 4 years ago and said, all you need, and I made the statement, all you need is cattle water. What I meant, and I should have known is, he had 10 products. They all were bacteria products. But if you have what all of them have in it and more in one product that you can sell cheaply, that's what I meant. Because there's times that, yes, if they put down something else that just cattle water is just not going to do it, you know, that you're going to need to change. But the goal is Dr. Mike McNeil went out and talked to a bunch of farmers to do it out north. He says, do you want to go in a coffee shop and say, this is how much corn I produce? Or do you want to go to your banker and say, this is how much money I make? You know?
Better to go to the bank and start.
So the key thing is, but what you said, what I've been trying to, you know, I've had to learn over time is, it's a destructive technology. You know, the guys that are selling fertilizer are going to kill you, you know, and unless they own it or control it, they're not going to promote it.
Sure.
So you got to understand all of these things and put it in its right place to get it out. My goal was to get to farmers and give them something that they can be able to make money. They're making $200 an acre more money using cattle water. This is 4 years ago, or now. But, you know, it's, and It's just building up the soils so that you use a third less water, you know. For some reason, when you balance the soil, you get, you know, you don't get as many weeds. You don't get weeds to take.
Maintenance, John.
So.
Weeds will tell you. I mean, they're there for a reason. And like we said earlier, nature's going to see that that weed remains in spite of whatever you put on it. Eventually, until it finishes its job, it's not leaving. So how do we get rid of weeds? Well,
Start balancing the soil.
fix the soil, fix that underlying problem. And so how do we go about it? Well, there's biology, there's minerals, and
My whole thing, though, in working with Joe and trying to understand, you know, and I've studied this a lot, and I believe in a lot of what we discussed. But what I'm trying to decide is this. Cattle water can do kind of what Joe says it can do. But a soil is showing us that we need salt rock phosphate, calcium sulfate. Do we, you know, is Joe saying I don't need to do that? Or is Joe saying the cattle water works in conjunction with that? In other words,
I don't know, better ask Joe that, not me.
Yes. Okay, we get many trials, you know, with microbial and trichomes. And so what he did was just did just cattle water next to full fertilizer. And we have all the study, you know, he showed added up at the end. And the bottom line was he didn't produce as much, but when you get like 18 rows instead of 14 rows on corn, you know, you don't have any mold on it. You have to look at the bottom line is and say, okay, I didn't produce as much the first year, because this was done the first year. It gets better and better every year. But it's, when you make, you know, more money, when you make more money off of forgetting all the added stuff, does all this stuff help? Yes. And if you didn't have something that's producing, if you're able to cut out most of your fertilizer or NPK, and you make all that money off of it, do you need to add? Are you going to take and say, okay, maybe adding this, is that going to give me enough in bushels to pay for them? You know?
Yeah.
And that's where you have to look at it. Say, sometimes say, yeah, if it's missing. But what we haven't had is, like the Charlie, you finally just cattle water alone, right? And stop using Roundup, and, you know, because the soil's balanced out. Took off, used a third where they got rain, they never puddled. Where it had drought, they were still green, and others dried up. So what I'm saying is, it's not, and I'm not just pushing because our technology is nothing more than having concentrated microbes in water. Well, that's it. It says that, and for some reason you can freeze it or bring it to a boil, or it never changes. What it made 40 years ago is still good today. But it's just using microbes, you know. And the study needs to be done. We've got USDA, we have been working on it, but to show that that's where the answer is not just NPK, you know, to build up the soil and where it's at. So, you know, a lot of this stuff I'm saying, so you understand it. I am not all I know is how to make it. I know how to put it down. I've now seen 10 years of salts and learned everything. You know, I mean, bacteria is in wastewater, we're in oil and gas, we're in tar sand, we're in, you know what I'm saying is it's all bacteria. Even when we drink it, you know, it's prebiotic. But it's what everything is. You know, what Jim was saying before, it's how our bodies work. It's, you know, if you take the soil and look at it as a living system, which it is.
Should be.
Yes. And,
Not really.
you know, but
Everything works in conjunction.
Well, it does,
Yeah.
but go ahead, Joe.
So it's like this, is that It's just that this technology, and I'm talking about using bacteria. Okay, cal water just happens to be, you know, one that we have right now. We're able to get it down commercially, you know. But it doesn't matter on price. See, that's what I found out. I mean, we started out, golf courses loved it, and country clubs at $225 an acre. When Charlie paid for his, it made $200 an acre, he paid $50 an acre, right? So I finally brought it down to $15 an acre. Did it really make any difference on the price? No. It's because, just like when Charlie put it down, his fertilizer guy, if you don't add nitrogen in, you're gonna lose the whole crop. So he says, okay, I'll just do it on part of it, right? Ends up, and we got pictures, aerial photographs, of they take infrared pictures showing the nitrogen. You know, it's a natural nitrogen fixer, but, you know, but is there all these other products? Yeah. You know, you can't come up and, but I think that where the study needs to be is using these products and how the soil works. And now that we're able to do it where it's commercially available, you know, to sell something that puts down per acre. So if a farmer can say, all right, all I need to do is put this down, and it gets better and better every year, you know, because they're not putting it with enough water, you know, that's something else. You put it down.
That's why I mix yours with manure.
Yeah, that's what, that's, get rid of manure. That's, see now, when you take manure, and you, what are you doing? You're just augmenting, you're just bringing it down to what, 1/10 of what cat water is, because what is cat water? You know,
I augmented manure.
yeah, but see, you take, there's a difference between cow manure and hog manure,
Yeah.
okay? Cow manure has more bacteria in it, you know? So it all depends on what you, but if it's all in there in one solution, you know, doesn't matter what you're using on corn or wheat or.
That's why I actually mix some of your cattle water in with my manure treatment that I use on my own clients in conjunction with the Manure Master product. And I just feel I just get a little extra punch, a
So
little
if you
extra
put
response.
3.2 ounces, all right, then it doesn't matter when you add it to what else you add it. You're getting the same thing. If you just put water in cat water, you're gonna get the same results as that in your manure, you know that.
Yeah.
So, but you have to get rid of it, right? In other words, you know, what I want to do is make digesters and then just use it coming out of it, the water to put out in the field, put cat water out in the field. And then produce electricity with it. Because every one of your customers, if you made a digester, right, and ate it with cat water, and then put it out in the field, and then you produce electricity. But it's all just using bacteria, just some, you know, they say we do power plants, eliminate SOx and NOx, and, you know,
What you should do is go to John Deere and tell him instead of using DEF, urea.
you can just put it out. Yeah, that's it. Sulfur, but you know what I'm saying, is what we have is, ever trying to tell somebody that really knows what they're doing, and right now, I'm impressed because all the things you said is more than you hear from all these other guys out there that they don't understand it. Like Dr. Hatfield, USDA, he comes up and says, they haven't got a clue.
What surprises me is he's still a big weight at the USDA office.
Well, he's finally, what happened was, I took him to dirt and metallurgy, and stayed into Iowa State metallurgy. And the whole idea was, if he didn't do anything but finally get him to really take a look at cat water again, you know, once it went down to Nobel Prize, because it improves biotransformation. You know, because how can you take dirt and turn it into metal? And how does it happen?
It's a electron exchange.
Right. So what cat water does is just, it's a catalyst, but it's all of it, and it has another part of it besides just microbes. You know, because we have a fermentation generator from us that you put water in, and electricity, it's all made by nature. Put water in. Once you go through the 9 months it takes to make it, right? Then, you know, now I can say this much of it. You ask why, we say we have take all plants and you take all the enzymes out of corn, all the enzymes out of wheat, and all this, and you put it in there, and that's all part of it afterwards. You know, for itself, it's like a living system, living thing, just like us. You don't feed it, you don't do the things it needs to be done. Once you get out, once you get what's out of it, you never change. You can change it, but it always goes back to what it is. That's why you don't want to always take and add it to something else, then expect it to do what it's supposed to do in the soil, because it may have already used what it was supposed to be doing, changing something else that's bad.
Like chemicals, if I mix cat water management to spray out, I use it immediately. If you leave it set overnight, your chemicals
Destroys.
rendered worthless the next
It
day.
destroys Roundup. You take Roundup, if you enhance it, if you
It'll
put it
actually
in
make
just a couple
stronger.
ounces,
Yeah,
it enhances it. But if you leave it in there overnight, it destroys it, totally destroys it. If you put it in the soil, like, you know, so that's, you have to test it, then it puts the soil back in. You know, 'cause
and it will take out the residual effect of the Roundup in the soil.
We'll take and see where you put Roundup, and you put cat water and Roundup, but it stays, it doesn't, the bottom doesn't die, the top one stays alive, it neutralizes. But trying to get it out, to get people to understand it,
That's the tough part.
and you can't make, like I told Jim, I understand, you can't, any company right now just sells just that. If they got big overhead and everything, they can't survive. Because, you know, that's what's good about what we have, but it's, so I've had to learn a lot of this, but what I've been trying to do is, you know, our goal is to clean up the environment with healthy food. But boy, is it been a
It's a struggle because there's too much of the industry going the other direction.
yeah, but right now, it's changing.
It is.
We're really going to wastewater because they're finally finding them, because all of our, all this raining on, they're taking wastewater and just putting it in rivers. So they say, okay, if you have waste, you know, and one of the things he was bringing up is we could show, you know, we put it in wastewater, it eats all.
I did
waste and it's
that for 3.5 days at probably 15,000 gallons a minute for the city of Redwood. Their lagoons are running over, they were worried about worms busting out, so I ended up with 2 pumps down there. But that happens all over the place. But if us farmers did that, we'd have been in hot water big time. Yeah, actually, it was Jim Gearing that called me.
So I think you
He's
see
a fellow, she knew him.
in your field, if you had something that did all the things, you know what I'm saying, is if you had a concentration that just, you put out on the soil, you know, and it changed it almost overnight. But trying to market that, you know, is a lot harder than it was 5 years ago. But now,
It's getting easier.
now it's getting easier, but it, you know, the goal is not to take that technology and let a big company take it and, you know, which I've had over and over, buy the technology and shelf it because they're making too much money.
Who's this?
You know, their whole structure with the money they spend. So you understand it, that, so you don't go out there and do it where you kill the other companies. You get to, where they get to a problem that, you know, like what it is with Roundup now. Now we can restore the soil.
Yeah, because
You
now,
go Roundup and you come back and neutralize it.
because Roundup's finally hit the fan to where farmers are understanding it's useless. Most of my neighbors are quitting, they're even now mad that they're paying a tech fee. Because it's like Roundup doesn't work, but yet they're still being charged a tech fee, and now they've gotten this Roundup Ready 2 soybeans, so it's like perpetuating that whole program that now we're gonna push you over to the new technology. Yeah,
Yeah, I think, if I had Jim check this year's, I think that he would take GMO, that if you treat the seeds, GMO seeds, that it's gone.
you mean it neutralizes the GMO gene?
Okay, is it the same thing if you take a hybrid rose, all right? And if you treat it with that water, when it comes back the next year, it comes back, to what it was originally.
Is that right? Original roads?
Yeah. My wife had a big gardening hose, treated it, and then she put it back in the
That's the normally over time, other than age, the insurgency.
Oh, is that?
But if something accelerates, what you're talking about is an accelerated process of a natural organization. The plant understands
That is not normal.
it's not normal. The plant is going to go back to its original intelligent design that was in its DNA. And so that's one of the problems with genetically engineered crops, is that generation 2 and generation 3 are very unpredictable. And you don't want Frankenstein out of the box.
Yeah.
They are horrible crops. And physically and
And so we're kind of at that stage now where,
that's why they don't want people saving GMO seed. Now, that plant, when you alter that whole gene structure of the plant, it's like taking a Cadillac part and putting it in a Volkswagen. And you think, all right, now my Volkswagen is supposed to think like a Volkswagen, and think like a Cadillac. And you scramble the whole intellectual property of that plant. Well, nature is not going to, if left alone, nature will
correct?
correct the situation. If the plant will eventually eliminate that gene. Okay, but in the process of getting back to normal, it's a very unstable plant. What kind of things is it going to express? They know, that's why they don't want to regrow, they don't want the seed saved, because their premise was this genetic modifications are stable. They're not stable. The plant doesn't want it. Given the choice, the plant will abort it.
Yeah.
If it will try to go back and straighten itself out. But no, I understand what you're saying is some of our,
I'll give you a call when I get closer to you on Friday.
where do you start with a farmer?
Mhm.
You know, is,
How do you reach them?
well, and
Just give me your address.
Pocketbook is the only way you're gonna,
Yeah.
when it gets to where it says, I gotta sell out, or I gotta get out because I
Yeah.
can't make enough money, and you say,
Or the other area, I think,
Yeah.
eventually is gonna be regulation. I mean, they're gonna be, we're gonna be limited in nitrogen application. We're gonna see more regulation on waste management. And it's just a matter of time, they're gonna start, and out of necessity, and it should be that way now. Anybody putting up a beef confinement barn should be treating their manure.
And that's, Redwood County's gone to that.
Yeah.
They will not turn out any permits for any animal structures unless the manure is being treated.
See, we talk about outreach marketing. With your experience at the state level, we should be contacting every county,
Yeah.
every manure management officer, the state level, and we need to educate them that they don't have to be dealing with all these negatives.
And she knows a lot of the ones that I know.
Right, and the water quality, the watersheds. Right.
MPCA has a citizen board that you guys are really
Right.
careful of.
Right.
see,
But anyway.
I feel like this, if you have products like this, that you can, help rebuild the soil, eat waste, one of the things that I told them that we can bring up is an 8-minute video of, we did a wastewater plant. I've had to take myself, I heard all the results of different plants, wastewater plants that used, that my partner used over years, but I had to go out and do one myself. So I went to Bull Shoals and Arkansas and put it in their wastewater plant, just so that I went from the beginning to the end. And after we got it all working, some political stuff came up with police chief got fired and tried to file a complaint with the EPA saying that toxic chemical, cattle water's being put in and it's going into the White River and all. Well, the EPA came out and we have also a whole test in there, and they saw that, even said that the police chief had somebody steal the product out of the plant, had it analyzed, all it was water, and that's all they could find. But it met all compliance, it wasn't killing the fish, and, you know, and there was no waste in the drying beds, you know. So we have a video showing, and then we took the product away from them, which, when the video was taken, we think it was 6 months later, and then we got pictures of it showing afterward. But I'm saying it's, you know, there's so many problems that we've seen, you know, that I've had to run into because you're fighting the system. If you have to know how the system and how you have to use to get it in. But now, finally with time, nature's taking over, and the EPA is finding them now for doing things. It's the only way we're going to clean up. They want you to clean up the lake. You don't want to clean up the lake. You clean up what's going into the lake. The lake will clean itself, you know. So,
And it's a matter of befriending them and making them understand the difference, and that they don't have to put up with odor or bad situations, that these issues can be dealt with, and they can be done cost effectively, and then it's everybody wins.
right.
It's not just for
So-
one individual.
To get this, for us to clean up the environment and give healthy food, it's going to take like 100 of you. Okay?
Thousands.
You know what I'm saying?
To finally break through
To tell what really is going
the
on,
true story.
and that's what I feel we're going to make a whole lot of headway here. What we tried to do, we were talking 4 years ago, it wasn't right. Now, Jim, everything he understood and what he did in a video we have, he believed it, but he hadn't seen it, all right? So he really, and the other thing is, you have to take and survive. You can't just
In the
switch
meantime,
overnight. And I said, I've never, you know, he and I has argued for 4 years, but I've always agreed with him. I understand his problem. I don't want the headaches of employees, or running a business, or dealing with the public. What I want to do is someone like him and like you need to train, and all you have to do is, like his whole video he does, he trained on how the soil works and putting it in, and then at the end he goes, well, here's a new technology, you know, that does it. Okay?
It's that same principle. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. I found with my client base, I just showed them the facts, showed them what I was doing for them, and then that took care of itself. What happened was, for me, is all the clients that I started treating manure pits for, they told all my neighbors. So I still don't have my phone number in the telephone book.
It's your best way of advertising.
It is, word of mouth is by far the best, and then you let them make that choice on their own, and they're all flocking. I've got enough business that I can, well, I just added another tractor and tank today to team in my cousin, but I had another customer manure hauler that bellied up in the business because he couldn't make it go. He contacted me, he wants to team in with me, and he knows I can add client to that, but it's because I started treating my clients as a manure.
You've got
That's
to,
what did it.
you've got to be able to start at the ground level. I think it's farmer to farmer.
But yet, Doug, you go because we've done it for the last 5
Oh,
years.
yeah.
You go to a conference with manure haulers,
Yeah,
and you tell them this, and they just,
they think it's too good to be
they
true.
they
The
just,
only one that took note of it was Michael Whiteley.
Yeah.
And then he
Yeah.
talked his
Yeah.
future father-in-law,
Yeah.
and, yeah.
it's,
But too many of them think, oh, that ain't that, it can't be that easy. Well, it is.
and that's why, you know, Ken and I were, this morning, we spent 3 hours with these guys. And, you know, it's really funny because one brother is, well, I would say more analytical, and the other one is expressive as hell, right? And we walked in this morning, and he just went off, the expressive, he went off for, what was it, a good half an hour or more? Just, Ken made one comment about, he's got trophies hanging around, you know, in the office down there, and a nice big elk. And that ended up in an icebreaker for at least a half an hour telling about that, where that came
Yeah.
from. But,
Probably in his backyard.
but, you know, these guys that we were with this morning, even though they've been what I would call conventional farmers, they get it.
Mm.
They get it. But yet, but on the, and they've had exposure to Ken through Dane Yagi, over what, about a 4-year period of time.
I'm sorry.
And they've used bio-release and they love it,
Yeah.
you know, and they've
But-
seen differences.
And they just need reassurance
Right,
that it's still
and
working.
we just
Yeah.
have to have an accident that we can't explain. And
That
I think,
happens.
and I think they
Yeah.
understand it, and we're working through it, but.
Because I always tell all my farmer clients, they're like, oh, just use it. I'm saying, no, we're not gonna do that. I wanna put a test out in your field. I'll even put the flags there. I want you to do a yield check on your own, because that's the only way you're gonna prove to yourself and be convinced that this is something you should be doing on your own.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to make them understand it on their own terms before you can market it or sell it to them, yeah.
See, I need to get back to Ronnie. Can we mix Ag Natural with any plant nutrients at all? Is that not a problem?
I need to text.
The other thing I wanna know,
Yeah, you brought up the question, okay.
Kim,
Can Doug put Biomineral 75 with the Vulcar? Or does that have to be, no? just keep
No
that
mineral with Vulgar.
Okay,
okay, so Bulgur has to be done on its own,
Yeah.
yeah, okay. So if I went and stuck the Biomin 75, sprayed that on, can I do that after tassel here? That'll be all right? Okay,
The Biomineral 75 would have been helpful
prior,
prior to the 8-10.
right?
But the plant's not done. We still have a lot of enzymatic activity that should be supplemented by trace minerals so that they can accelerate what they do in the process field.
Okay, so then if I went and sprayed my Biomineral 75, like say when I get back home, Saturday, could I then Monday go out and spray my Bulgur?
Absolutely.
Okay, all right.
Now you can put Vulgar, heaven forbid you need to, but you can put Vulgar with a fungicide. You can put Vulgar with,
Okay.
I don't think
I don't think
area
that would
will
need-
have
yeah.
fungicide issues.
well, some guys like the sugar beet guys, they're flying
Yeah.
fungicide on all the time.
Yeah.
So they just, if you've got sugar beet guys, that's okay.
Well, and I've been out analyzing, I know Jimmy probably know too,
But you can't do it with a
looking at
mineral
cornfields,
product.
I don't see a deals. None this year. I don't know what the deal is, but I'm just not seeing those green beetles
You
like
see
they
a
did last year.
sulfur deficiency starting to show up?
Last year. it's pretty-
Absolutely.
Plant too.
Sulfur is very common to be short now. But people didn't realize at what quantities the plant was demanding it.
That's why
When you look at a lot of legumes, sulfur is much higher than phosphate. You know, in corn, it's just under phosphate. But in alfalfa, it's per ton, phosphate's 13 pounds of phosphate per ton, sulfur's 50. So you have varying demand needs, and it's either number 3 or 4.
Here's what I have. 3 guys up on my need to relate 200 pounds of almost sulfur levels, 150 pounds of sulfur pots. And so far what I'm seeing, and Dean did bioseed coat on his corn. Couldn't wait to plant, planted on the 15th. Doug planted on the 17th, and both emerged at the same time, on the 22nd. What I'm seeing on Dean's field, I think the bioseed coat on Jeff is great. His field, half that field had a real high sulfur content. Again, it was the only one I ever found was over 100 pounds. So I asked him, I said, "Do you have a feedlot out there?" He goes, "No, but I bought dairy manure 10 years ago." I said, "How thick did you put it in?" He says, "Probably about 20 to 30 tons." Back then, and then, that field, he planted it at 34, he's gonna average about 31. His bricks, first bricks was 6, now it's up to, I got 7 to 10 and a half bricks coming. But it's got a real nice dark blue green color. I mean, you look at that field, look at the neighboring colors. I'm thinking that some of this is going to be related to the trace minerals, to the sulfur that we put down there as well.
Well, sulfur has an effect releasing a lot of other minerals. Sulfur tends to be a soil balancer in a way. Not just adding sulfur to it, but sulfur, we use it to reduce magnesium. You use it to reduce potassium, you use it to reduce sodium. Well, when you pull these down, they're way imbalanced. What are they holding on to? What are the minerals are they tying up in the process of being excessive? So as that bond is broken, you have to release whatever was being held captive by that major nutrient.
Okay.
You get a lot of trace minerals back when you drop calcium. So calcium and magnesium are both high chelators of trace minerals.
Our area up there, probably magnesium's gonna be more of an issue. But calcium's right up next to it. I'm not saying, but it's not as bad. It's maybe 10-15% over where it should be. Where magnesium, we're seeing anywhere from 50 to 80 to 90% over where it should be. 100%.
Big problem.
Big problem.
Big problem. The sulfur will break that bond with magnesium in the process. All these other minerals that have been bonded become soluble.
Okay.
So, it's kind of a domino effect. I get rid of the magnesium and all of a sudden, here comes the complex components that now don't have that bonding.
Iron combat. The best would be in the road, right?
Well, I like it there because now the plant starts with
Okay.
once you have a plant that's deficient in iron, it's more difficult to move to a plant. So if it can take it up initially, I like it in Pearl. It does a wonderful job of being taken up and getting circulated like the video. If you can get it there,
Now, with iron combat, what you would do to, this testing. Would you add like a pint before fire release to it?
Well, I think it would be part of your starter. So you're gonna have some bio release in there. Whether you've got, I don't think a pint of bio release in your starter is adequate, because you're not just trying to deal with iron in there. Bio release is going to deal with that balance of minerals and biology. And so typically, it's half a gallon to a gallon of bio release. Guys that put that pint, I say, look, you're better off to put half a gallon on half the stuff than rather put a pint on all of that.
Okay, let's bring it back together. Ken, one question that I have is, we were getting potassium sulfate that looks like this, and now we're getting stuff that looks like that. What is the difference? Is one organic and one conventional?
Well, this is
The last stuff we got, and this is the stuff we used to get. This stuff right here.
Yeah, this is, I can go back and ask them.
We're getting this now,
Yeah.
but we used to get this.
Well, I've got both in my warehouse.
So what's the difference?
Nothing.
Where they come from?
Chemistry? Probably in their process somewhere.
Okay.
I noticed it changed to be a little bit lighter. I haven't gone back and asked them what the change is, but I've got both in my warehouse, Jim.
Is there an organic version and a conventional?
Yeah. The conventional version actually has a polymer on the outside of it.
So this does here?
Conventional does.
The conventional has a polymer on it?
It's not dusty.
so much. You get the organic version, and it's really less. And because of the supply and demand, it's going up. The conventional.
What's
moved
Jim
up
on? Jim, what do you want now?
to July 1, $55 a ton. The organic, they added a $100 premium on top of the $55.
Talking about fertilizer?
Well, just because they know.
Somebody's got a
the
Subway
organic
sandwich
guys
there.
have a choice.
If
The-
it sets there too
There's
long.
0060 as an alternative, so they didn't crank up the conventional. SOP quite high.
Now, the elemental, since we were talking about that, elemental sulfur and the soft rock phos that comes through you, that's all can be certified organic.
It is, isn't it?
The elemental
It is.
sulfur is organic. I mean, these are
Yeah.
naturally mined
Yeah,
materials.
so there's
They're not
no,
refined, they're not processed.
yeah, so
The
this
only
all needs
difference-
organic certification, doesn't it?
It already is.
Yeah.
The reason that the conventional isn't is because they coat it. Other than that, it's the same product.
Well, and then they strip out all the trace minerals, don't they?
No, not
They
in,
don't.
not in the conventional product.
Oh, okay.
It's just a coating.
All right.
That is one thing, since we're on it right now, let's just kind of talk about it. This is a little overview together. In there,
How far away is
I
this
put,
mine? These
Ken,
mines
what I
from you?
think is the
50
pricing for
miles.
next year, and I just wanted
SOP's
to,
out of the country now.
Okay.
and I, this is kind of what I think you told me. The issue we have is we kind of have to be on mark on this, because what we want to do, we feel on these products is because of the time to get them out and pricing and, well, just logistics and try to get them where we need to have them, that here in August and the first part of September, we better be getting this product ordered if customers want to use it. So,
This will change. You got my email, I sent it to Dennis as well, the price increase.
yeah, and that's what I did that off of.
You did?
I thought I did.
Okay.
I thought I followed, this has been a week or so ago, 10 days ago? Well, all I
Yeah,
know,
probably longer. You're about that right. I think I sent that email.
we just need to
Dennis.
be leaving here knowing what roughly our costs are so we can go out. Because as I'm understanding it, soft rock phosphate, not a problem getting that, right?
Nope, we're good.
But potassium
That's good.
sulfate's gonna be a problem. Right?
It's very limited.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Elemental,
That's coming from another country? We're not mining that out of the US?
The government shut mines down.
Okay.
coming out of Canada, as well as elemental sulfur.
Well, elemental sulfur comes out of that, but a lot of the SOP now is coming from overseas.
But anyway, David, you
Yeah.
want to get promoting it, right?
Well, here's where I'm at, Ken. We've got some guys up there that did the elemental sulfur, did the soft rock phos, and I think I'm able to, I sent to them my in-season report with some pictures and stuff like that. We're seeing some things that, what I told the guys up there is this, I said, let's get this stuff ordered. I said, all of you guys got sheds. Let's get this stuff here during off-season. We put it in your shed. We've got the trailer. This way, when fall comes, crunch time happens, you've got the product and you're done, let us know. We'll get you the trailer, go spread. So, and what I'm targeting, Ken, is I want my guys to be ordering between now and the 25th of August. So they
Well, I
can-
think that's smart, because now the soft rock, I think the problem that we get into with that is they just get booked up on their delivery.
Yeah.
There's not a shortage of the product, it's just getting in to get it. So we may have to wait a week or 10 days or 2 weeks to get a truck in there.
Okay,
That's
here's,
not bad.
here's the only problem I see with that, because I look at it from the farmer's perspective. all of us, our bank accounts are down to nothing. We don't borrow for next year's operating until later on. Is there any way that we can get this and then pay it at the end of fall when our income is in? Because it's actually part of our next year's operating expenses, and a lot of farmers are just, our checkbooks are drained.
These guys that produce this are not banks.
I know.
And so they give us a short window of time, and we're not in the banking business either,
Right.
or is
Yeah.
Jim or anyone else. And so it doesn't lend well to this deferred late payment thing, because nobody wants to carry that
Yeah.
expense. And so the thing is I guess you can try to order it
That's-
a little bit and have it brought in a little bit later, so it's closer to when you have money to pay for it. But the problem with SOP, and you're gonna see it this year, if a guy needs it, he needs to get it ordered early, because now it is all on allocation.
And it's
You-
dependent on being shipped, over
Well,
the ocean.
a lot of it. And they already know that the supply will be short. What we have seen the last 2 to 3 years back to back is that the big companies will come in and buy blocks. I mean, that they're gonna go in and they already have a customer base and they know they're already gonna go through X thousands of tons. They'll buy that and the computer schedule is full. So by the time we hit fall, you have a difficult time getting in line by spring because it's allocated. And they know that enough is not coming in. And we had stuff that we had looked at that was months out this winter.
Okay.
And we wouldn't even have gotten it here by crop time. Now what happens is sometimes one of these big companies won't take its allotment.
Okay.
And then it moves people up or creates a bit of a hole, but that's gambling. If you won't get it likely. And so we had a lot of people that couldn't get it. They waited till planting was over and their second cutting of alfalfa was on before they could even get it.
Wow. All right, and that was placed last fall.
That was
Yeah.
placed in February.
Okay, all right, so, first part of the year.
You're waiting 4 or 5 months.
Where's it being mined at? You said it had to come overseas.
I didn't ask our guys where the source was. I don't know if they'd tell me anyway. But
We don't have SOP in this country?
some, but not nearly. We don't produce enough stuff in this country now to sustain ourselves.
And then the oil that we are producing up in North Dakota, that's all going overseas.
That's
Isn't
not-
that crazy?
Yeah.
It's absurd, isn't it?
It doesn't make sense what we do with
Yeah.
the process of all this. But aside from that, fertile SOP is going to be tight. And we may jump in line and I haven't ordered any for a month.
Okay, but no.
But I don't know how far we are out now, but we won't drive down and get it.
Well, now, here's another question, Ken. If, let's just say we can't get the product till it's late, can this still be spread on the surface? Because I've seen some co-ops go out in the dead of winter.
Absolutely.
That's what I thought. So we can still use the spreader trailer and spread it in December or January.
Yeah, a lot less
As long as
compaction.
it's travelable.
Lot less
You don't have 2
compaction.
foot of snow on your field.
Yeah. Because, then I got some free time, because normally I'm gonna be snowmobiling, so, and I could do quite a bit of custom hauling.
So
of-
as far as the white spot costs and elements software, it's just, if I start getting guys to pay me and get ordered, we can start shipping.
Yep.
Because I told them guys, I said, you guys got sheds, damn it, put it in.
Yeah,
Until October 1, we won't start backing up there. I mean, I
Alright.
can call them up and say,
so if we get some
Larry?
orders in here in the next couple of months, you could fill those pretty promptly? Okay,
Okay.
all right.
piece of cake.
Yeah, because we've got storage space.
But we gotta have the money up front, and you
Well,
can't.
it's-
These guys give us a really short.
Guys, this year, the way that this market's going, we do not want to let anything out without getting paid
No,
for it.
you
We'll be
can't.
chasing it.
You can't.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because these guys that come harvest time are gonna be stretched.
Well, they're gonna be $1.25 to $1.50 a bushel under their cost
Right.
on
Yeah.
corn production. And that's just the average farmer. Some of them could be they could be $2, yeah.
Well, last year in the banking, before I came on board here, the average break-even price at Midwest Bank was running right at between $4.50 and $4.75 a bushel.
And that was figuring 200 bushel corn.
That was figured 175 bushel.
Okay,
We could not go above 175 bushel. Because history was telling us, all of our client base, the average yield was 170.
all right.
And I'm sitting there and I've got guys that cut silage and this and that, and they come out and do their yield check for their crop insurance, you know, because they cut 40 acres or whatever. Oh yeah, looks good, yep, we'll put you down. Let's see, we had 3 samples, 1 250, 1 260, 1 280. Okay, 4 months later or 3 months later when the harvest is going, what was your average yield? 175. I'm just scratching my head like, what? Where did it go?
And the adjuster,
Yeah, the adjuster was scratching his head too.
Gossesville.
Well, I called
You didn't
it
know
the
it then.
GMO. Yeah, I did not know it at that time, but I always called it the GMO factory because all that corn that they were, most of it was GMO. Okay, you lost.
I think
And I'm
Gossesville
just
took
going,
most of it.
guys, what's wrong here? But
It's far
Okay, how
worse.
can we, guys, think about this, what we just discussed.
Mhm.
We know that 2/3 of the guys out here come this fall and going into next year are gonna be sucking wind, okay? So how can we capitalize on this? Why don't we come in with a message that says, let's find a way to produce corn at X dollars per bushel, right?
and trim your bottom line.
I mean, if you look at the cost analysis that we did
With what I,
for
yeah,
you, what was your cost reduction at the end on that spreadsheet?
mine was considerably less than any of my
Right.
neighbors were. And I visit with them guys and what
his
kind of
input cost
scares
of
me.
production was right, I want to say $2.
And seeing my neighbors, if they're at $4, they thought they were doing incredible.
Yeah, some of your neighbors might charge
Well,
600 pounds of
You know,
nitrogen.
and what scared them is they knew I could come in and offer $500 an acre and still be profitable. And they couldn't,
700
and they
pounds of
couldn't even
nitrogen?
touch that. Yeah,
Is that what you said?
700 pounds an acre of fertilizer.
Of fertilizer, not nitrogen.
Most
well,
of it was nitrogen.
yeah,
Why, yeah, but
I've
There's-
got neighbors that, Dennis, you wouldn't believe some of
Yeah.
the
You
idiotic
wouldn't
stuff
believe
they
some
do.
of the crap that goes around the
Back in '08, when fertilizer hit the fan, I had one neighbor that I was putting down 6,000 gallons an acre of bioaugmented, well, it was manure, but it came back that year testing $110 per 1,000 gallons. And I went to him after the fall because he put on another 150 pounds of anhydrous after I was done spreading. And I went to him and I says, okay, it was Tom Johanic, my neighbor. I says, Tom, I said, what would you say if I told you you were going to go to the co-op and request you wanted $660 an acre of fertilizer? He says to me, he says, well, they put me in a straitjacket and hauled me to the Red Roof Inn, Cemental Institute in Wilmer. And I said, well, Tom, I hate to tell you this,
That's what you did.
but that's what you did. And then to top that off, he added another 150 pounds of anhydrous ammonia. And this was on bean stubble. So there's another 40, you know, at least 40 pounds of nitrogen credit from the bean stubble. And, you know, so I've seen the bizarre stuff done, but that's what farmers do. And it,
The other
yeah.
thing that we could think about here is,
That wasting.
you know, we need to promote our program and everything. If some of these guys, we can look at doing some short-term financing through AgriSpan. That would be on some unsecured basis, on qualified credit. We just have to tell them up front, you know, that they could put some of this stuff on a plan like that. If they take it now, okay, I'm right in the middle. Next season hasn't quite started yet. I think August 1st I'll have the new application. But we could actually put some of that stuff on some short-term financing.
Oh, you
The
mean for
bulk
like
stuff.
next year's expenses?
Yeah, next
crop
year's expenses. We
Okay.
could probably start that in August.
The two options that you have is a mineral from some source has to ultimately get into the plant. Now,
Yeah.
do we extract it from the soil and use the reserves there? Or do we employ the biology to create some of those nutrients from minerals that aren't available? For example, on nitrogen. Now, you can buy synthetic nitrogen, which is expensive. But there's a lot of biology that make nitrogen, and they work well. Now, the thing is if we are going to look at a biological approach to nutrient production, you can't kill your microbes. So you can't put out your biology and then come along with
And then it's apple.
glyphosate.
Yeah.
Or a fungicide.
Or a fungicide or an insecticide and whack it out and expect that there's anything left to work for you. And so,
That's the message right there that we need to get
Yeah,
across,
yeah.
okay? And the thing is, if you look at what we did, I put this together, I think this is actually for Nelson's.
This?
Yeah, this is complete 200 bushel corn crop, and with a complete Cadillac program, with 2 foliars, ended up being 171 a bushel. Okay? Now, what's wrong with that equation?
nothing.
Okay, and so, this would be, you know, using everything that we feel would benefit. I even had the cattle water in there. I mean, now you gotta put land costs on top of that and all your, well, you'd have land cost, harvesting, taxes. David, how much is that gonna amount per acre?
Depends on your land cost, whether you own it or if you rent it. If you're renting $300 an acre, land cost, you're probably looking, with your cost of living, your normal operating expense, that $1.71 can easily jump to $4.71.
Yeah, yeah, because if you figure $300 cash rent, your seed, your chemical, you're looking at a $700 to $800 bill per acre is your bottom line expense. Yeah,
700 an acre?
7 to 8, and that's what a lot of farmers.
On your fixed expenses?
That would be your total expenses involved with your cash rent.
I don't know how the
And
guys,
seed.
like,
Because
it's
seed
$200
alone,
an acre?
yeah,
Well, you're
7 to
looking at
8, because
$800 an
seed
acre.
alone is $100 an acre. And fertilizer, if you're gonna do any decent program, you're looking at all of 200 at least or more. And then you got cash rent, there's 300. So, you know, your machinery expense and chemicals, you're looking at,
Taxes?
you're looking at 700 to 800 bucks is what it boils down to plant corn. Yeah.
and you get, I don't know what you can get now. I was talking to Ken up there in Borgelac. He had 85-mile-an-hour winds Monday night. Flattened everything, took grain bins down. I mean, his corn's flat, he said.
North Dakota, Ken?
Yes. Yeah, he didn't think he'd be here
And
for that reason.
It was
yeah.
during pollination too. So he
So
doesn't
there
know
you're
what
gonna
he's
have a
gonna
half
get.
an ear pollinate at best, because that bottom side ain't gonna,
You think you'll get 50 bushel out of it?
Well,
depends on if anything,
it may be worth more as a silage product, you know, and get the crop insurance.
yeah, because I don't even know, do them guys have any livestock in that area? Like Ken?
I think there's some dairies around there, but everybody, their brother's gonna try and contract with the dairy now
Yeah.
if the corn's down, you know?
Yeah.
But he had a good corn crop coming too.
Well, you know, Mother Nature can be pretty brutal. It's just,
Yeah, well, here's one thing to keep in mind. Most of the farmers, when there's nothing left in the checkbook, they look to cut corners on their expense
See,
side.
that's what my fear
Yeah.
is next year.
Yeah, but what you could do is say, hey, we got a program that's a lot less cost involved and still can maintain your crop, yield level where you're accustomed to, and not spend any more money or spend less and get the same, yields back.
Yeah.
Well, the problem is plants.
Well, let's talk about that a little bit, because this is gonna be a real issue going into
It's
next
gonna be
year.
big, it's gonna be huge.
But your plant to produce X bushel has to have X elements
Yeah.
in it.
Yeah,
Right?
you mean there's no real shortcuts to that, unless you can
No.
mine a little bit out of your soil that you've been reserving.
The minerals have to come from somewhere.
Yeah,
So if you're gonna produce 200 corn, you physically have to come up
feed
with
that.
X, 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 and X on your mineral base. Right? You can't produce, if your corn requirement is 280 units of N for 200 bushel,
Yeah,
you're going to have to convert it from somewhere.
Yeah.
You can't, there's no such thing as taking only 50 and making 300 out of it. All right? You physiologically can't short structure, right? 300 or 280's got to come from somewhere. Do you get it from the air? Yeah. Can you get it from the soil? Yeah. Can you get it from chemical fertility? Yeah. All right. But what's the most economical? How do I convert the resources into
that I have available.
Sure. But for a guy that says, I can grow 250 bushel corn on 20 units of nitrogen,
That ain't gonna happen.
it's impossible.
Yeah.
All right, it's like saying, guess what? I took $20 into the bank yesterday, and they put 1,000 in my account.
It's like pulling a rabbit out of the hat. Yeah,
And,
it isn't
and
gonna
so
happen.
it doesn't happen, but you have to physiologically have a mineral to have biomass, right? If you don't have atoms and you don't have electrons, you don't have structure. Okay? There's nothing from nothing. All right? You don't get something for nothing. So how do we move it? How do we convert it? Well, the least efficient is simply you go buy it. Okay? The most efficient is you have the biology involved in as much of the process as you can, because they have a different program than a chemical company. Chemical company is not going to give you free nitrogen. There's a lot of biology that will. Okay, and if you employ those biologies, they can change that mineral that's in the air
Make that
into.
plant a lot more efficient.
So you may only buy X amount of commercial fertility, but the biology is going to have to produce the rest if you're going to get to X. It's simple as that.
But then there's that balance with commercial, that you overload the system so much that the biology doesn't want to kick in. And then that's a balance too.
Well,
And
this becomes a problem with guys who are lazy and they want to dump everything up front.
Yeah.
Like azotobaster or mycorrhizal. At a certain point, the mycorrhizal simply said, there's no point for me being here. There's so much phosphate in the environment that I don't need to be here. Well, the type of phosphate that you may put out in solution may be at a very high quantity at planting, but because of its chemical reaction, it's going to come down in availability very quickly. Well, the plant doesn't need it until later on. So what you have is lines that cross. I have a declining availability and an increasing demand. And so you short circuit your system up front. That's the whole point of staged nutrients. Is so that it's a management thing. We're all coming back to how do we manage physical things. We've got chemistry, we've got biology, we've got plant physiology. If the plant says, you know what, I'm not taking up my phosphate until weeks 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8, there's no point in putting out an incredible amount of phosphate pre-plant that's reactive to think that it's going to stay there the whole plant growth cycle. It's not going to, physical chemistry says it won't work. So, and then if I say, okay, I'm going to outsmart the plant, I'm going to put all this mycorrhizal out there. The mycorrhizal says, there's no need for me to be here. I'm not going I'm not going to sporulate and colonize in this root system because nature tells me there's no purpose in it. Now, once I lose my phosphate and it ties up, then my natural mycorrhizal colonization and its ability to grow and eventually become a producer for the plant, it's too late, because then I've missed the window of
When it's.
periodic demand that has to be there to make the yield. Plants have a very strict diet. They won't take the minerals early, and you can't make them up late.
Yeah, so you can't
When you look
protect
at the crop nutrient calculator and you look at the nutrient uptake per week on corn, that doesn't get altered. So if we miss a window, the plant doesn't say, okay, we'll just hold this part of the physiology back until the mineral's there. It just simply goes through it and moves on and cuts the yield off. So the plant diet isn't going to get altered because we don't manage well. And so our job as advisors is to plan the mineral so that the mineral doesn't interfere with the biology, but the biology has the highest efficiency of the mineral.
Okay, so on that note, all these minerals, they can be put out in the fall without a lot of bleaching or loss?
No.
We've seen these.
No, not all of them, Doug.
Okay.
Very
so
few of them.
We've seen a lot of crop in our area that the guys put everything on in the fall, which is what the co-op wants, because they don't like that spring 2-week window,
Yeah.
So they pushed all this fall stuff. Well, most of that fall stuff, especially the urea stuff, it's gone. The anhydrous ammonia, it was gone. I mean, we don't have nothing left. It's all down in Mississippi. And well, now we found out Minnesota, our river basin, is the most polluting tributary of all of them going into the Gulf. So when you were talking about that point, we are the biggest abusers.
It's poor management. This is the problem. Farmers have taken so many shortcuts because it was easier for them or someone else. Farmers have gotten lazier and lazier. There's a reason that they went to the genetically modified Roundup type crops. Well, you know, it made good farmers lazy and it made bad farmers look good. Well, they picked up all of this McDonald's theory of farming, drive-through farming at McDonald's. I go get fast food, I go get fast chemicals, I go get fast this, I go get fast patch that. And what you end up doing is you have a very poorly managed system that grows garbage. And this becomes the problem, is getting guys back to farming instead of spending more time in Florida than on their farm.
Or the golf course.
Or they have gotten so big and so spread out that they've only got X number of time to cover 8,000 or 14,000 acres, and they say, I don't have time to put one more thing in my tank, go away. Okay, what they've adopted is a management lifestyle that's so maxed out that they can't do it right. And what will eventually happen is that farm will get sold, it will go broke, and it will get broken up into pieces that can be managed. Okay, it will end up being traded
And that's what happened this
into
coming year.
manageable parts. So if guys want to keep it, because the soil isn't going to continue doing what it's doing, the pathogens are increasing, the weeds are increasing, the costs are increasing, we now have resistant biology, pathogenic organisms, we have resistant weeds, we have...
Resistant biology?
Oh, heavens, yes.
What do you mean by that?
Listeria, salmonella.
Oh, that's what you mean. Okay.
Oh, I know all about that.
Pardon?
Now I understand what you're saying.
My husband's a food center.
Okay, now,
And it's.
so you're very aware of that aspect now.
That's what you mean by that.
You have a whole series of resistant organisms out there because we have overloaded the system with an imbalance of toxicity. And there's a place for them, but it's not the dominant role. And so the simple flag is the organisms wouldn't be there if we weren't growing junk.
Yep.
So they're just cleanup guys.
They're the garbage collectors. All right? But we are not growing healthy plants because, one, the chemicals interfere with the biology. They interfere with soil chemistry. They lock up plant nutrients. There's a lot of compaction issues. There's a lot of toxicity issues with our fertilizers. So we ask this poor plant, who probably is tainted right from the seed, all right, it's got diseases, it's got chemical toxicity right in from the get-go. We're going to go put it in this obstructive environment and say, do great while I'm gone.
Flourish. Yeah. It ain't gonna happen.
Great, Mom, God.
Yeah.
I'm
Okay,
going to
guys.
Florida.
Down and dirty. This would be a top-notch producer. Guy that washes his pennies, doesn't go to the lake every weekend. His cost would be $765 at $300 an acre rent.
Is that what it boils down to? Okay.
That's $4.37 a bushel at 175 bushels of corn.
Okay?
Yeah.
Well, you're there.
This is the math.
Yeah.
These are the numbers I'm comfortable with. But I'm telling you, this is a guy, he doesn't go to the golf course. He doesn't go down to the lake every weekend. He's staying home and doing some things. And that's his break even.
Well, the only thing that you can do is when you have a set commodity price and you have inputs, the only thing you can do is expand your production.
Yeah.
That's the only thing that lowers your potential for profit, or that increases your potential
Yeah.
for profit. lowers
What I've
your
seen-
production cost.
On that same lines is when you got good biological going on, you got a little bit of a buffer, so when you do get an adverse year like what we got this year, we just got way too much rain in our area too soon, now we don't got nothing. But it does give you a little bit of a buffer to handle those extremes.
That's what they do.
Yeah.
And so, the more, this is where I think we need to look at the long-term survivability, is we need to go more biological based and more natural mineral based. We need to get off of them as much as possible, the refined products, because they're way more costly. And look at the efficiencies of everything we do. Split applications. If the plant's not going to use it for 6 weeks, why put it out and risk the leaching? All right? Yeah, does it mean I have to make one more trip across the field and spend $6 an acre? You bet. But you know what? It's better to lose $6 an acre than 30 gallons of 28 or 32%, because it all leached down into the Gulf of Mississippi.
Now, if you take that same producer and just putting 50 bushels an acre onto that, it drops his break even down to 340.
Does
And
it
his
really?
family could still stay on the farm, and they could still eat beans and rice during the winter.
Do what?
He's about basically.
At 225, he drops his cost to
That's all right.
340.
Now it's 330 something at our local.
Take that same,
Hey, you know what it is in North Dakota?
same field,
270.
he's producing 175. If you push him from 175 over to 225, drop it down to 340 a bushel.
The city owned property,
Just
Same land.
there, Gail's.
Same
that
land.
would be the production.
This is what we gotta teach these guys.
Yeah, okay, but we gotta get,
Buyers
but
today.
also interwoven in that is the balance between yield per acre and
Input.
cost and profit per acre.
Yeah.
So how do we do, you're saying at the same cost, we gotta get that yield up there, another 50 bushels.
That's what I'm saying. The market is telling us, guys, the market is saying, you need to be better managers. You need to get your 175 to 225 in order to survive. How are you going to do that?
Or you need to get your 450 costs down to 350 costs. And you won't do it in the conventional system. You're now going to have to use a more efficient system to transfer your nutrients. And the only reliable system is biology that I'm aware of, is you have to employ the biology to transfer nutrients that your plant can't get. In any given soil chemistry, because nature is not going to let everything wash down into the Gulf of Mexico like the Mississippi. So it's going to combine, it's going to complex, and it's going to bind up these mineral compounds. So when you look at our soil, you may have 50,000 pounds of potassium in your soil, yet only 500 pounds in solution, less than 1%, right? So do I have a potassium shortage or do I have an availability shortage? All right, because Mother Nature says, if I put it all in solution, the first grain is gone, and it's not going to do this. So Mother Nature is saying, look, I'm on a management system, all right? And we're the only guys that come out and say, yeah, it should all be soluble. It should all be in a liquid that can move where the water goes, all right? That's what people want to sell you, all right? And what I'm saying is that the highest risk product is the most expensive product, and you need to employ the biology to go after that which is present but not soluble.
So then even using any liquid fertilizer is not a viable program
Well,
in comparison to like this.
Well, what I'm telling you is you're running the risk, anytime you have soluble nutrients, you run the risk of leaching. Now, you tell me when the rains are coming, and I'll mitigate your risk, all right? But you know a plant diet, okay, you've got that schedule, right? How do you get to manage that diet? Because that plant says, you know what, I don't care when it rains. I don't care when it dries out. My diet is right there. Now,
I need it.
the guys that are nailing 400 plus bushel corn on the high yield contest, guess how many trips they're making across their field?
About 8.
About 8 to 10 trips. And why?
They're feeding them.
They're spoon feeding it soluble nutrients. Now, is there a different way to manage that nutrient program? Absolutely. Biology understands plant nutrient program because the plant and the microorganisms are communicating. The plant directs the biology, if it's there, to go get phosphate, to go get sulfur, to go get zinc, to go get iron. Okay? The only problem is we have a fraction of the biology that we should have in our soils. We have depleted our soluble base of available minerals.
So then
Is there more there? Sure, the plant can't get it. The plant's already telling you that.
because the plant don't have anything to work with, you mean biologically, to go after
Of
that.
course not. Why is your residue still sitting in your field? Jim, look at these beautiful pictures we took this morning. How much corn residue is still sitting in their soil, on top of their soil?
Well, it's about, I'd say 35% maybe.
It's heavy. It
Still left there?
should be gone.
I don't think I have any.
No, yours is
My
actually,
arrows-
yours is actually one of the better fields biologically.
But that's not the norm. What I'm telling you, farmers have to get back to management. Plant residue has a host of available, a host of insoluble minerals in it, right? Why not use that? You already own it. Right? But you're going to have biology manage it. And in the system, it's not bacteria that eat 150 carbon and nitrogen rich material. It's fungi. Okay, it's enzymes from protozoa. That's what break down high carbon and nitrogen rich material. Right? So the reason that the residue is still there, I can walk into a field. And I say, all right, I go out, the residue is there, I automatically know. I've got bacteria, I've got no fungi, I've got no protozoa. I can tell by the croppy plants, GMO crop, I have limited bacteria, I have no higher organisms, I have compaction, there's no earthworm holes at all. Because he's used the chemical fertility, I know he doesn't have availability of trace minerals. So I know his plants are going to have disease, he's going to be putting out a pesticide or a fungicide. You can tell all of that simply because there's residue on top of the soil. It's not being managed. And so no one's out there to help the farmer because all of the chemical support systems make too much money having this ignorant consumer out there completely uninformed of his options.
Which then forces him to have to go back to that.
You're a junkie.
Yeah.
Junkies write checks. Addicts write checks. Smart people don't become dependent.
Exactly. They've dumbed everything down. They want society to be dumb. They want the farmer to be dumb because it's simple. They just tell them what to do and okay. And nobody questions it. And they don't want people to question it.
Everybody's lost some of the knowledge, I will say, of how to grow crops. When I was growing
That
up,
hands-on.
that hands-on experience. When I was growing up, my God, we had oats, we had barley, we had flax, we had wheat, we had corn.
Alfalfa.
We're monocroppers.
Well,
We
this,
rotated. We rotated, and then we had clover in the small grains for green manure crop.
the other day, Ricky and I were talking, and we wish now we'd stuck in some oats. They were paying $9 a bushel in our area,
For
and they couldn't find oats,
Because they
the
couldn't
sugar
find
beet guys. And it's easy to grow 100 bushel oats,
Mhm.
piece of cake.
Fall out of bed.
They're
Yeah, I
growing.
know,
They're
and that's
growing.
why, and my brother says, and Mom, she had made $100 an acre just on her straw last year. So we're thinking, you know what? We need to put another small grain crop in this mix.
Farmers are gonna have to get more creative and more resourceful. The system doesn't lack substance. The system lacks management. When you look at this, if I'm solely dependent upon soluble nutrients, what my soil test shows, all right, I don't have enough, I'm going to have to go buy some more from the co-op. That's the plan. However, what if I employ the organisms that can go into that other 99% of the soil profile and pull stuff into solution?
That
Now-
soil bank account.
Well, yeah, and so is it better that I'm an addict over here and I have no ability to manage this resource here? You own the resource. And so I'm not saying that we have the right to take and deplete forever, because you don't. And this is not a mining program, this is a management program. If you take it out, eventually you have to put it back. The reason that we find no molybdenum in the soil or very little cobalt, all your trace minerals are low, it's because for hundreds of years we pulled them out, or plants have before we got here, and geology didn't put it back. You look at most of our soil structures that came in back in 500,000, a million, 10 million years ago. They came through glacial flows. They've come in through floods.
Lost the pollen.
Okay, they come in through wind.
They
Okay,
come from the atmosphere.
they come from the atmosphere. The thing is we're not replenishing nearly at the rate that we're tying up and we're shipping down the road. So we've run a depletion program. Now, if you're going to be sustainable, and you say, okay, I've got land that should continue to produce and produce well, you've got to have a balance. It's not that I have a whole lot of nitrogen at one time. Nothing can use that except a weed. And these management programs, the more you bang your nitrogen in one time, in one place, the more you said, okay, Mr. Weed, I just created the perfect environment for you, because my nitrogen will skyrocket my bacteria and it will set my soil into a place where it will grow weeds till hell won't have it. You can bank on that from sun up to sundown, and it's predictable as gravity. So it's a management practice, guys. You just have to be aware of the biological and the physical effects of what imbalances do in the system. Everything is telling you something. It's not an accident that the weeds are there. It is no fault of Adam and Eve that weeds are there. It has nothing to do with them.
It's also, the more balanced you get, the more efficient you become with each element. It's just like water. We know that if a plant is nutritionally balanced, nutritionally, the amount of water it takes to produce a given pound of dry matter
Goes way down.
It goes way down because of efficiency.
Because water doesn't produce
Now,
dry
what I
matter.
want to do, I
Minerals
want to
do.
give, we've had good discussion here, okay? I want to give Joe a chance now to respond to what you heard in relationship to your thoughts.
I think we need, yeah, we have somebody probably understands 1,000 times more than I do. If I just show some of the things that we've done in Whitcap Water, maybe you can help us. Like what I put up there, I went out, we're over in Costa Rica doing water cleanup, wastewater. I had them do a DNA report of that. And this is what they came up with. If you notice, see, this is the water I brought over that goes in that we start with, just, out of well water, okay? And this is the microorganisms. There's the fungi and the bacteria. Okay, if you notice, then after we go through the generator, it comes out up here. If you notice, the bacteria went down, right? But but look at the fungi, none, okay? And then the microorganisms. Then we dilute it 100 to 1 with the same water. Look what happened. Here's the microorganisms. But look at that. Right? That's a lot of things that we see what happens in corn when we don't have the mold and stuff on. And then now this is all relative if you kind of look at the dilution ratio, but what's unique is this is what's in every bit of just water, and so the only thing that I got out of that personally, is that when it goes through the process, it changes. When you would think that this is what it comes out of the generator, and it dropped down roughly 400, but look what happened when you dilute it back with this. You would think that it should be 2,000, right? I mean, if you look at the ratio, but look what actually happened when you dilute it with water. With that water, if that's already in there to begin with, what happened with the rest of it?
Okay, tell me what your cattle water concentrate is. I don't know this.
Okay, what we do is this. We go through fermentation, natural fermentation.
Okay.
But if we're going in with water, okay, that's what this is. Under the control water, that's just well water, okay? And this is what was in that they analyzed in the water.
Okay, has the well water been treated at all?
No, just what comes out of the ground.
No fermentation, just out of the ground?
Just out of the ground.
Okay.
Good drinking water.
So that's what we got, microbes and fungi and bacteria at the bottom line.
Right.
Okay.
See, when they do a DNA, it's so, they are so sensitive, they measure everything, that's what they came out of it. Okay?
So the number one is what comes out of the generator, the concentrated, right?
But this,
Would that be
the
400?
number one is what comes out of the generator after it goes through the fermentation process. In other words, once we make a generator, it's water in and water out, okay? And of course, we add things every day that we, just like with us, you have to feed it every day. Okay?
You have to feed fermentation.
And we're able to take, actually, and I can show you that I can decrease one and I can analyze how much we add and delete. But at the end, in other words, all we did then is we diluted it. We say roughly 100 to 1. We all know, what it is, but it's roughly 100 to 1.
Okay, so the 100 to 1 is you've taken your concentrate material and you're going to put 1 part in, 99 parts water.
Right.
Right.
Same
See,
water.
Ken-
Doesn't matter what water. Yeah, doesn't matter what water you add in. We found out we get the same thing. Now I think these numbers will change if we use somebody else's water that we put with it, but it's not relative.
Ken, one of the things that the originator of this technology found out is the dilution rate of the concentrate was key.
Right. Yes, except, what happened, and I'm going to tell you, they did some fracking up there, and 2 years ago, we switched went down another 500 feet into the Oklahoma Aquifer, which is big.
But it's getting smaller.
4 months ago, all of a sudden, we didn't realize, didn't even think about it, is that we started getting this stuff happening in our generator, black stuff on it. Still analyzed good, but it was this stuff we were trying to figure out what it was. Finally found out that the pH had dropped down over 1.5 pH. Now, can you imagine the acid that they're putting in, is fracking, it took the aquifer and dropped it 1.5 pH. So I came back and had to re-hook up the old well, to go back. But what I found out is, out of that, I found out a lot more with the generator, okay, the things that we were doing. But I found out how to analyze water. I can analyze water where it comes. If you have the same source, I can tell you if it's the same source or not. All right?
Based on what's in it.
I can analyze the water and tell you if it's the same water in 2 samples. All right? And there's a difference in each water on the, we're measuring light energy. But so we found out that if you take too much, there's a certain dilution ratio for everything that we use, right? That when we dilute it or concentrate basically 90 to 1, that's the amount of treatment that needs to be per acre. Okay. Now, can that be raised a little bit or lowered? Yeah, I think what I found out, Jim, is that we were wrong. I went over, we did some analysis showing how we analyzed concentrate, and then when we diluted 90 to 1, what was negative goes positive, right? And I've been going with that for 3 or 4 years. I found out that's BS. All right. The reason why is that the way we were analyzing, we changed the water that we were analyzing it with, diluting with it, which moved our baseline 1,000 points over. So if you have a 600 negative signal and you move it down this far, you lose, So what I found out is it's more or less relative, like the total bacteria is, that if you use the same water source, right now nobody can analyze the way we do. It's like computers. If you didn't know the source code, you couldn't rewrite the software. But the same thing is, I can analyze cattle water, how much water you diluted it with, right? And before we thought that something happened exactly 90 to 1. And there is some things that happen that goes, you would think one of them goes,
It flip-flops.
something goes twice as much, it goes 4 times bigger, some of the signals. We're working, when we look at it, we look at it with light energy.
Okay.
So what this is telling me, if I look at total microorganisms, is that the concentrate had 1,900, the dilution had 1,300, and we started out with 23. But when we look at fungi, it took it out completely, and
You'd think if
dilution magnified the bacteria.
Right.
Well, it's less than what was in the control.
Okay, but the species number, where did we end up losing some? Or
See, that's what I'm saying. All I'm telling you, this is what they showed me, right? And, you have to go with what you have. But the main thing that I saw out of all of that even though we start out with a control that shows that many microorganisms, right? When we go through our generator, if you notice, it goes down. Yet we're adding a whole lot to that. But look how they drop down. And then when you dilute it with water, it's not relative. It actually should be.
it should be the ratio, basically.
So when you talk about this, the yellow, tell me what, like in the very top line, Joe, cattle water concentrated, that 1,946 total microorganisms in yellow, but I have 7 in red. What does that mean?
Okay. what you have, I mean, see, right here is what the water started with. Then after it come out of the generator, that's how much came. That was the reading of what they got that came out of the generator.
Okay.
All right? Then they diluted it. 100 to 1. Okay? With the same water.
And it went to 13.
It went down to 13.
All right.
All right? So somehow it's getting rid of, all right, we find out if you treat a hog facility, the E. coli and salmonella are gone. Okay, Jim's come up and said, well, you crowded out with good bacteria. Well, but the thing is, we're seeing things that things happen when you put cat water on there and it balances like we saw in the soil. But we have to use this and say, okay, what is happening? The only main thing that really makes sense is we do mold cleanups. We spray in there and it makes mold sterile. Okay? So, but it doesn't mess up the soil. In other words, whatever's supposed to be there works with there, but what was in
Should
the water
be there,
to begin with, you would think that, yeah, let's say it killed all the mold that went in here, but it seems like if you dilute it with 100 to 1 of the same water, the 1,099, and you had 0 here, it should be 500 here, shouldn't it?
So is it then eliminating the ones that shouldn't be there?
It's, yeah.
Yeah. And that's the reason the numbers.
It's changing, and we don't know why nature is changing it, but it's changing it. Now, I can tell you this, we have a certain process that we go to make the generator then it's a functioning thing. But then if we go in and we add, all right,
Additional.
we add
micro-
additional,
yeah,
you know,
strains.
we feed it, like if you had a balanced, everything that has to be balanced, which you should be eating, all right? If it's organic and you feed X amount every day, all right? That's what we add to it. So you end up, it eats it, you end up with the enzymes, right?
The byproduct.
Right.
Yeah.
And it just ends up with water. They don't, you know, but for some reason when you add it to something else, it's a catalyst that makes the chemical. But that's the part.
Like it's accentuating the chemical. Like if you mix it in with a batch of chemicals that
Right.
you're spraying, it actually enhances the chemical.
Right. Now, I've got on there I went and I had pictures taken of cattle water. And what I needed to do was and I went to the top microbiologist I've gone to 2, 3 different universities. There ends up being, I just showed one guy, it's Dr. Hatfield. He goes, oh, he told me what he said, nobody's ever seen what it is. Here's the picture of the concentrate. Okay? Yeah. We don't publish this, but I'm just showing you. All right? Just so they can see.
Try that, right?
Well, we don't want you to record this, is the problem.
Yeah.
This is part that's proprietary, all right? You can't, all this stuff, that one would you keep, what Jim keeps, but, let's see, can you put that on the screen or what?
Yeah, it's got to back up a bit. Oh, on the screen, you have to,
Okay.
you have to download it.
Okay, no more. Okay, so that's what we see. Now, the reason I'm bringing all this up is when you dilute it, you make the dilution. Let's see if I can bring this up on. Yeah, go back to the. How do I get back to that chip? Oh. There it is. Okay, that is.
Yeah, it's overnight, yeah.
Okay, so when we dilute it, you know, this is what you see now. When you dilute it to 101, you know. So you end up seeing bacteria and stuff. But why did we not see it in the concentrate when we dilute it? Then you see this. You know, that's why I said, I'm not expecting anybody to be able to understand it, right now. I mean, we have to research it more, but something happened when we said about the dilution ratio. At first, it's like DNA. You saw that, looked at it, it looks like DNA. That's the first thing Dr. Apple wants to know. That's DNA, you know. Well, and then you dilute it, and this is what happens. And then we have to dilute another 20 to 1 is what we do for drinking. But if you drink the concentrate, that's nothing. No. And once you dilute it, then it's in the microbes. On the concentrate, 1.5 ounces is what 3.2 ounces, which is.
Okay, on an acre, yep.
Right, now, because the reason now, Jim, that this answers that before, my partner used to come up and say, well, you diluted, this is the dilution ratio, okay? And we had to understand, and we found out that, yes, that's what works, okay? And I thought that when I used the HPLC, the negative signal and positive, but it was because we used the University of Dallas water instead of regular water in it, and it shifts the baseline up, and that's why that happened like that. But there is still some things that happen in it. So, but if you use, it's like anything that I was told with enzymes, if you use too much, it doesn't work. You have to use the right amount, it's a lock and key.
Okay.
And we have enzymes, bacteria, and microbes in kettle water.
So then the water you're using, where do you get that from? The aquifer here?
No, it doesn't matter where.
Oh, it doesn't? You
Once
can
we
use
make
any
the
water.
concentrate,
Yeah.
it just
All
means
right.
that I can't analyze it. You can't send it to me and I'll tell you, all I can do is analyze kettle water after it comes out of the generator. And when I'm making AG,
Yeah.
I can analyze it and say yes, because it never changes. So when I send it out to you, you can't ever say I got, see, what the other problem with bacteria products is temperature. They
That's
put it,
fair.
it smells, they put it, you know, it's all a fermentation process, and you never know what you got in it.
From one batch to the next.
Now, with kettle water, I can analyze when it came out, and once we put it into a container, it creates its own oxygen. You'll see water, you know, develop in it. Never goes bad. You put it in a hot car, have regular water, water will be the same temperature as the car, kettle water will be cool. So there's a lot of things that we find out with it.
If it freezes, does that affect it?
The product that you saw on, not the pictures, well, even the pictures here, had been in Amarillo in a 55-gallon drum sitting outside for probably 10, 15 years. So how many times does it freeze and unfreeze and freeze in the heat? It doesn't change.
So it stays consistent regardless.
The concentrate,
Yeah.
okay?
All right.
And then if you take it, the only thing that we say on there is keep out of sunlight because it will, that's because it's.
That's why you
it'll
put it in
grow
blue
blue-green.
jars.
It'll grow a blue-green algae.
Okay.
If you just have it clear and have the sun. You don't ever want to put it in a swimming pool because, you know, and then it neutralizes acid. And acid and a base. The balance is always.
So that brings it to a neutral pH level?
Right. So these are things that we have found. Now, I met another guy that came up about 6 months ago, Charles, and he explained to me, he says, well, the ions build up at night, the soil, and at night they change. My partner always says he thought the polarity changed. Well, what it is, we know it's ionic. I've got an ion meter and I can spray the concentrate, those positive ions. If we go dilute it, it goes negative. So we know that when we put it into a lagoon, we keep saying you put a sprinkler on it. You can watch the action of the bubbles, the solids that it brings up. You shut the sprinkler off and just like turning off the light switch, it just goes down, speeds up 1,000 times. Well, now that I know it's ionic, I don't think it's where the droplets are hitting it. I think we're creating ions that make the microbes
Go.
Like I said,
hyper.
you have to take everything that's happening and just put it away, and then maybe to somebody and some people it will
It
click.
makes sense, yeah.
You know, because all I can say is, these are the things we can go in, and that's why I wanted to play that 8-minute video, is because it'll take, and we do a wastewater plant, it'll eat all the solids and no smell. We take a lagoon, if you do it right, put a sprinkler and stuff on, take a 5-acre, 12-feet compacted lagoon, 5 weeks, eat all of it, eliminate all the smell. All right? And it's just, you know, it's because you're turning, now there's a process that you go through that you have to do. Number one is, if you have, where they use copper sulfate, you kill the bacteria. Just like the soil, you put Roundup, you kill the bacteria, right? So what we do is we add bacteria. Okay. First of all, we put sodium hydroxide in it to neutralize the copper sulfide, you know, in it. Then you can come up and we add just a little bit of cow manure. All right. Best bacteria in the world, right?
Yeah.
So then you just multiply the bacteria, okay? And it just takes over. That's why when you're in a home lagoon, you should be, every time you go through one, you just take a bucket of cow manure, okay? Stir it up and then pour it in.
Well, my sister's horse manure in that.
Horse manure, don't do it.
Why?
No, cow manure.
Okay, why not? Because I always throw a little combination of everything in there. What's wrong with the horse manure?
Okay. A rumen of a cow is the
They got
reason
four
why Mother
stomachs.
Nature made a cow 4 stomachs,
Yeah.
all right? And all the bacteria that you need, or that is close to what is in us, is in the rumen of a cow. All right? So you get cow manure, you're going to get all of the bacteria you need, and cattle water multiplies that. And
Substantially.
it takes over, instead of going anaerobic, it goes aerobic. And you eliminate the hydrogen sulfide. It puts oxygen. What we do, in this video that we'll show, I had this guy that's on the video a month after this, that we found out that the guy that was running the plant, his boss, would say, on Tuesday, he said, it went septic. On Friday, everything's going fine, but he says on Tuesday, it goes septic. So I had him write down the DO, everything that they did. So what was the guy doing? They measured the DO every day, okay? And 1 gallon of the diluted 100-to-1 treats 1 million gallons. So we were putting in 2 liters a day, 2 quarts a day, okay? To control that whole plant of the diluted 100-to-1, okay? And his DO would be good, but all of a sudden, what was happening was, he was too lazy to come in on Saturday and Sunday, so he would put in 1.5 gallons on Monday. So what happened? See, the DO normally turn the blowers on to bring the dissolved oxygen up, maybe 2. Dissolved oxygen, when you have cattle water, 2 liters would be up to 5 or 6. You turn the blowers off. So what was happening on Tuesday? The DO went up to 11. So what are you doing? You're killing all the bacteria. Make it go septic. Then by the time so research, you know, what we had found out, you know, I had to learn all this, you know. But in manure management, the reason that you know, that's what my partner did. He had 18 dairies, and you know, I mean, doing lagoons and doing wastewater. But we just got to understand it's all working with microbes. So, would this be a good time to watch the video? Can you put that?
Yeah, you bet.
Okay, we'll do that and then we'll take a little break.
Yeah.
When I go out and treat, I usually throw in about 6 ounces of your cattle water in my 200-gallon tote. Is that okay? Is that too much? Is that not enough?
You're putting how much in?
6 ounces in about a 200-gallon tote.
Of just AG, 2 ounces of what?
of the AG. No, it's 6 ounces actually. Is that too much?
200
Well, 100 gallons, and I'll probably treat 30 pits of that. I do that.
Right.
Sugar.
Just close that off. Close that off, so we can look at it right underneath.
Keeping up.
Okay, and then.
So, yes, I am.
Go
It's very
back.
interesting.
Go back to home.
Yes,
Get
a
home.
lot of this applies to the other end of my husband's work, yeah. So it does look at the.
All right, I'm gonna hit water treatment. Okay, and then
Hey, look at this.
we'll show us the video of that.
This is Matt Longan. He should hopefully be here tomorrow.
It's right there on the
You see the
screen.
difference between these two roads?
Click on that.
No, that's Marlo's son. isn't
Yeah.
Let me go down.
He's standing in between the two
And
roads.
hit play.
So what's different? One is
This is controlled.
You just
Got
click
cattle
that.
water.
Hold on just a second.
Okay.
It looked like it was two different varieties.
Oh, you're gonna have
I called Matt out. I said,
Audio?
did you plant two different varieties? No, this is where I put cattle water, 3x3 at planting. And it was wider leaf, darker green, bushier. And this was upright leaf.
Did he put it on at the 3.2 ounces an acre?
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Almost looks like this is struggling.
Yeah, it looks like this is lime green and this is a nice rich.
You can kind of see it here too.
Looks like it's almost drought stricken.
It looks like two different varieties. Can you turn it up?
That the average flow was
Why you got a delay?
200,000 gallons a day. Ran an extended aeration activated sludge treatment plant there. Very similar to what we have here in Little Shoals.
Yes, we have some displayers.
It's not an
Oh,
extended
yeah.
aeration.
That's what we have.
It's a activated sludge treatment plant.
So how many of those sprayers?
What I've been amazed the most about as a newcomer to this new plant is the cost effectiveness of not being able to have to spend money in dealing with the infrastructure that
Dry beds are
goes
empty.
to, contents
For 18
being
months.
removed from the digester and being dispersed either in a lagoon or a drying bed. In Bull Shoals here, we use a drying bed. From what I understand is that the catalyst that they're using has potential to be beneficial in so many regards. One is by alleviating the cost for going towards running your blowers. Another cost would be the expenditures that you have to spend by removing the end product, which if it's going to a dry bed, it's going to be dried and then removed to a landfill. And so those expenditures would be diminished greatly. What I've seen so far is that this is a product that has potential to help not only the operator himself, but the supervisor who has to pay the bills. And so that's basically about it. Is there anything else? Tell me about the odor, the labor, talking about the odor. Well, one of the negative aspects about working at or living by a waste treatment plant is hydrogen sulfide. Hydrogen sulfide itself is a rotten egg smell. So we all know if you're an operator, it's something that you're accustomed to. You know, if you have a family member comes to visit you at a plant, that's the first thing that says how you work here. But one of the very first things I mentioned that I noticed when I came on board as a wastewater operator here at Bull Shoals, there was virtually no smell whatsoever. Here about a week or so, and I was out doing my rounds at the lift stations, and a neighbor came up to me and asked me, "Are you working with the waste treatment plant?" And I said, "Yes." He says, "Well, you guys must be doing a fantastic job because I've lived here for a number of years, and at first we used to smell that horrible stench coming from your plant. Now we just don't smell it anymore, and I'd like to know what you guys are doing." And He just said we refined our process, and essentially, we work for the public. So if you can make your public happy, that's at least one aspect of a positive achievement through using this catalyst.
What would happen to your sewage lagoon if the catalyst was removed and you could no longer purchase it?
Which,
What we would have to do is we have to go back to what we used to.
We wouldn't sell it.
Have expenditures.
You couldn't buy it.
In a city that has not a great deal of money, because it's a small
This is
municipality,
what happened a year ago. I took a picture.
that a great deal of money which can be spent in other places, would have to spent on removing the dried sludge and being sent to a landfill. And also, we're talking about maintenance on blowers. We're talking about maintenance on motors. We're talking about a lot of mechanical things that have moving parts a lot of maintenance, not only maintenance costs for that, but money's going to keep those things in operational performance levels that all operators want to have them perform at.
If you ever go to another facility that you're in charge of, you gonna give them a call?
You know what, I was gonna call up my old supervisor, and who's in charge of 2 plants in New Mexico, and I was gonna give him a call out, and I was gonna say, hey, cause they discharged to an evaporative pond, and I was gonna say, hey, Andrew, this is a product that you wanna check out, so, yes, to answer your question, yes.
Okay. Interesting. So you would want to be a water treatment person, working a water treatment plant without this stuff anymore. So you don't have to go home to your wife smelling bad.
Well, you know what, it allows you to do in a small staff, it allows a big staff to become a small staff. You become more process-oriented instead of maintenance-driven. And so you're able to spend more time doing the process, refining the process. And anytime that you can, I always thought it was amazing anyways, as an old chemical engineer, it's that found out that I had microorganisms. My workforce was generated by millions and millions of microorganisms.
Things you couldn't see.
Yeah, things you couldn't see. If you can heighten your work performance from anyone or from anything, that's the achievement we all try to achieve for. And so it would just make, as an operator, more productive, because you have this catalyst helping you taking care of one of the most important things, and that is adhering to whatever the circumstances of whatever state you happen to be in or municipality you happen to be in. And, you're able to adhere to their standards a lot simpler. So most definitely, would I be able to? I would use this product at any plant that aeration or activated sludge treatment plant that I worked at. I haven't worked at any trickling filter or any lagoon systems, but I can only speak from my experience as an activated sludge treatment plant operator.
Are you married?
Yes, sir.
And did your wife notice a difference when you started working here?
My wife paid a visit to me in New Mexico, and she's a school teacher, and so she went and paid a visit at my plant, and she goes, how can you work at this place? And then she came to visit here in Bull Shoals, because we only lived here for about a year, and she goes, what is so different from here from Mexico? And I said, well, basically their process has been streamlined to a point where the catalyst is doing the most important job in this, removing the smell and then increasing the productivity of our activated sludge enzyme. So I'm thoroughly impressed with what you guys got going on here. I've never seen it, and I'm just astounded that my old supervisor's got 35 years of wastewater experience. One of the brightest guys I know, and I just can't believe that this catalyst just hasn't been invented. I'm sure some things have been used from this on this technology has been around for a while. I just can't imagine why he's never used it, but he's going to hear from me now. I think he's going to get a chuckle out of it.
all we did is add a sprayer, put the water from itself, and spray back on itself. And we had one chamber where all the solids were, and you could turn on the pump of this one over here and see start coming up and rolling over there. So that's what I was telling you, the water.
So you're saying it's ionization that's driving, that multiplies or what, energizes the bacteria?
Hyperstimulate the microbes.
Right now,
Does it cause them to multiply or does it activate or what is it?
it's like just a fuel that speeds them up. Right now, look at, what if we do, let's say alfalfa, and we got pictures, you saw all that. When it blooms, it's the same all the way across. You take the next field that wasn't, you have splotch like normal objects. Right. But when you use cattle water, it's even all the way across. And when we do a lagoon, you know, we can, if the pump's over here, we put the water in any place, and it goes immediately. You'll see the most action where you're building the ions up that will happen. We'll eat up everything eventually, but you'll see the most action where it's spraying on. So the key thing is to be able to spray back on itself, right? And create, you know, it seems like it's ionic that is doing it. How or what we do to find out with bacteria, but first thing I asked Dr. Neil 6 years ago, I said, so how does the plant take up the nutrients? Well, it's ionic. But ions, you know, and I'm going, okay, I mean, that's just what I heard. Then I come up and I find out everything that we're doing. When you spray it on a plant, you get relief from it. You know, if you do like house plant, we're seeing we put it on. And some of the other things that I was told that may come up here is, you were saying, how does the soil replenish itself? Well, one of my buddies had worked for Spectro, analysis equipment there, and did it all. And his father worked for NASA, and he worked on the moon rocks. And he said, I understand cattle water based on what I was seeing with my dad with the moon rocks, because they would take the moon rocks and scrape off the rocks, and then they would put that on a plant, and they would get new leaf growth just like cattle water is. He said, but what they found out is, as soon as they brought it out in the atmosphere with the oxygen, it oxidized, and the plant wasn't able to take it up, or wasn't to do anything. Well, cattle water opens the soil, but it also makes that available. It oxidizes. That's why I guess, I'm saying, so all of these things, you have to take all of it, and somebody that's been around it, like him, would probably be able to understand or see what is really happening. That's why
What makes it work?
Jerry Hatfield says he wants to research, yes, and he wants to show that he suspected it was biotransformation when he talked to Michael McNeil about elements changing.
But that's ionic, right?
Huh?
That's ionic.
Well, see, it's,
Elements changing.
yeah, but no, what I found out when I want to show you that little article that Peter sent me 2 days ago, showing that the scientists in California showed that bacteria are eating electrons, big electrons. So, I think the technology is finally coming up, but the only thing that we're able to help is because we got it in concentration, that they can really analyze and see things happen. That if you're seeing it happen, which nature does just slowly, and you're stopping that action by putting commercial fertilizer and taking the moisture out, not, and adding Roundup, which kills the bacteria.
So then, okay, you did a miracle for this sewage treatment. Why aren't they still doing it?
Okay. There is another article that you read that the police chief got fired from new mayor. So he thought he was going to get the mayor in trouble. So he had a neighbor file a complaint with the Dallas office of the EPA saying they're putting a toxic chemical called cattle water. Okay, now, and this is, so he says, so the EPA went out there to do this analysis. I mean, this whole, they had to act on it, because they said it was a toxic chemical.
So at that point, they had to cease and desist using the that water?
So what happened was he went out basically, the whole, this is the whole report went on here. What it did was, the police chief got fired, so he finally did that. So he had a friend of his, file a complaint, and he had a friend, the other friend, that worked in the wastewater plant, went in, stole some of the cattle water, and it says in the report, took it out, put it on the side of the field, on the side of the road, so the police chief could go get it analyzed. But they find water, right? Because they would just take some of the concentrate and make their own 55-gallon drum, and then they were using 2 liters. So the bottom line would come up and it said, in the report, it even told that the police chief took that, the fired police chief took that, but they did not find anything wrong. EPA says that they met all regulations, all their license permits, everything was fine. He did us a favor, right? But what I heard is,
So then why did we stop using it?
because I said, okay, if the guy that's working in the plant, the other, his friend was the one that was putting it in on Tuesday, and it worked for 18 months up to that time, isn't this a good time that to take it away from them and see what happens if they don't? Because 2 things, they were supposed to cut the blowers off. He did, and saw that the DO went up, they didn't need the blowers, but they kept running the blowers. So I said, okay, if you work for 18 months, it's time now to take it away, let's see what
Let's
happens.
prove the test.
Right? So the picture that you saw with the dry beds full, we didn't have a picture also of the drying beds before we started. Right? So what happens now, we have a picture, even though it's the afterwards, it all worked out good.
So now are they back using it?
No, I won't give it to them.
Okay.
No, because my buddy who actually took me in there's on the counter.
This is Matt Long.
He wants to put a whole new plant that's just designed
Standing in
using
between these
cattle
2
water.
rows.
All right?
You see the difference in the 2
And so,
rows?
okay, you can just, here it is here.
What do you see?
Well, that just,
Look, is there,
that down, right?
I mean, you would think that the.
Community
This is one row here, and this is a row over here. Is this one darker?
And have an uproar.
So,
Got a wider,
so here's,
darker
that was the
Look at
thing
how wide
showing
these
that
leaves
from the EPA, if you go on down,
versus an upright,
lower, or here, I'll
narrow
just
leaf,
leave.
a little off color. So I said, Matt, I want you to come in the field with me because I don't understand what I'm seeing. I said, do you have 2 different varieties of corn here? He said, no. This is where I put cattle water in it, planting in a 3x3, and this is our control row. And these are 10-acre blocks, but, I mean, so you can see the
There's the EPA.
non-treated versus the treated. See how dark and wide that
Could
leaf
they
is?
not test
So,
what was in?
We're seeing something here, and I'm trying to understand.
Here's what they're showing, it's a liquid enzyme called cattle water.
Okay, yeah.
This is what the EPA says, and they said it could provide more corn. Here's the product, 400 concentrate.
Yeah.
Alright, there's the showing it spraying in,
Holy moly.
then it goes down, it's showing it spraying in. There's the 55 gallon, they make up their own 80.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, this house is good. There's the SDS showing it's the same as water.
All right.
And so then it comes out and tells the whole story here. This is all on the internet. If you both shows cattle water, all right? This shows what they were saying, the 55 gallon drums, which wasn't true. They were making their own. hey, came from Oklahoma, which he didn't, right? But then they come down here, right? So, and this is the report.
Isn't that called fraud?
And we had,
This guy, we can get you good.
Well, that's what the information of.
The information comes over to Mr. Clark, gave the report, they come up,
Slander.
and here's, Clark said that said it's not killing the fish, you know, it's doing a great job. There's, he says, I haven't had to haul off any waste. And then it comes down that the police chief down here, 6 to 8 weeks, they'll put a sample from under the plant near a roadside. So, in other words, so I decided this is a good time, since his buddy's still in the wastewater plant, because what could he do? He could only make it to where it doesn't work,
Right.
right? So, since it worked for 18 months, take it away. And I didn't tell James to ask the guy, I said, what would happen if you stopped using it, if you couldn't purchase it anymore? He didn't know that I stopped and James did. So he just let it work perfect in the video, didn't it? So it showed him, so he had to go out there and start digging it up and getting it and everything.
Back like normal.
He says, he quit.
All right. Yeah.
And I think we need
Oh, yes. So we're going in to do that waste.
Chief really made headway, did he, really?
Yes, yes.
Is he behind bars?
Oh, he showed me, he got the new police chief, so we're all going to play against him, they look, usually, anyway, problem is, he had good court safety from the start, got the FBI involved and everything, with the new police chief. And it's all, this guy is, but did he help us? Yeah. I mean, he really, and I didn't even know, that was by accident, found it on the internet, and I didn't know that the EPA puts the report and everything else out. If you get a report bad, but to us, it just helped us.
Public
It's
documentation,
testimony.
just like state of Minnesota inspections are public documentation.
So you can imagine why I say if you put it in the room,
but then,
right now, you can add anything else you want to it. What else is, you don't need anything. You may be able to add it to where it's trying to correct something that you're putting in risk. How about copper sulfate? You put copper sulfate, you're killing all the bacteria that's going to be active. Not hurting cattle water, but you're killing the bacteria that's in there. Cattle water makes it work.
That's all they were adding was the cattle water to it? The plant and then doing the,
Nothing but
Wow.
two
liters a day.
We'll take a
little break and we'll get back on track.
that's wonderful. Boy, I wish Albert Lake could start that up.